This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
It's decision time, NASCAR fans. Who gets you the points? Who gets you the wins? Who gets you the bragging rights? Who gets you the championship? Sign up and play today at NASCAR.com/fantasy.
Live tonight from the virtual Texas Motor Speedway, we go sim racing for the fourth race of this 2019 eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series, our second due up with the all-new 2019 Aero package. It's sure to be an exciting night of eNASCAR action, and we're so happy that you're joining us tonight on the iRacing Esports Network, alongside myself, Evan Pasoko, joined by Tim, Terry, Randy, Cheneth upstairs, our producer downstairs, Hugo Louise, alongside Justin Prince, bringing us to you this evening. And Tim, no way that you can forget the exciting finish we had 2 weeks ago at the Auto Club Speedway. Our first race out with this all-new 2019 car. Saw the top four come across the start-finish line, all within 1/10 of a second of each other. The bar has been set high, but certainly a promising outlook for 2019.
A thrilling finish and a first-time winner. I don't think it gets any better than that, Evan, and we're going to see that look back here in just a few moments' time. But the second race on this brand new rules package brings us to Texas. It's a track that's been on the schedule since we started back in 2010. So a lot of these drivers know how to get around here. It's a favorite for a lot of these drivers, and they're getting ready to put it all on the line here this evening for round number 4.
10th season of eNASCAR competition, 10th time we say let's go racing from the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. And of course, Randy, these intermediate racetracks make up a bulk of this 2019 campaign. So while yes, Fontana was a ton of fun, and we're going to see a lot of that as well at Michigan later this season, the drivers have now had 3 weeks under their belt to figure these cars out. Certainly, I think a lot more comfortable with the testing. Could it be our first really good preview of what teams have started to figure these things out?
Definitely could be, but at the same time, their first trip to a 1.5-mile racetrack, that's going to mean it's going to be an all-new experience for these guys on this package. And of course, there's a whole bunch of new things this season. We have two new teams taking part as well, and Dylan and Letard Esports. Going to be interesting to see how those 4 newly drafted drivers do tonight.
We look forward to seeing how tonight plays out as we get set for 250 miles of action. Before we do, let's take an opportunity to recap that excitement from Southern California with a look at this week's iRacing race recap from Fontana. Keegan Leahy wins for a third time. Michael Conti is headed to Homestead. Gotta love this time of year. It is an all-new era for this 2019 eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series. It starts right here and right now in Fontana. The pace car dives down at the safety of the pit lane. Michael Conti's number 8 Chevrolet going to be the first on the gas. Green flag in the air. We're racing for round 3. As these drivers get that bite back of the fresh tires, they're able to do this 2 wide, 3 rows deep. The lead pack here, second position all the way through 16th, separated by just a handful of spots. And oh, what a spinner! Cattell's going to get turned. He's down and into the grass in turn 1. He's going to try to lock it up, but he'll slide up above the white line. And somehow, they don't plow into him, and a caution flag is out.
Tough break for Brandon Cattell. Nick Ottinger had that run, was on the apron. You can see it here on the replay, and that's just when he comes back up onto the racetrack. And it looked like for a moment that Cattell was going to have it saved and get back out on the racetrack and gets that thing stopped. And it was close for a couple of cars here.
Having a ton of fun, though, with some of these onboards. You see Taylor Hurst, one of the independent drivers. He's mid-pack where things are still too wide, a couple of rows deep. He's engaged in a fight with the 16 and contact. He makes contact with Overland. The 16 is sideways in turn 2. Overland is sideways into the wall, and he is not going to be able to hang on. There goes the Motorcraft Ford Fusion. Tried his best to hang on to it, Tim. I thought he was going to have it for a second, but a little bit too much. Just one more. Pace car off. He goes early. Green flag in the air. 3 laps left to go.
First time he's gone early all night long on these restarts, and now Ottinger going to fall into line to position number 2, lose at a third. Zelensky still on that outside, but there's not really a whole lot of pushing on that outside line, and now that Eric J. Smith goes to the inside, it looks like Zelensky the only one out there. There goes Luza.
Luza makes a move to the outside. It's going to be Zelensky pushing him. Those two lead the top. 3 cars lined up on the bottom. Corey Vincent, Nick Ottinger, and the 62 of Keegan Leahy. These cars are just now getting up to full speed. 180 miles an hour in 3 and 4. And it is a lead group of 7 cars looking for 2 laps to go. They're going to be 4 wide for P4.
And how about Michael Conti? Conti to the inside. He's trying to get a top 5 run late in this one for Junior Motorsports. To the inside, he goes on Keegan Leahy. Up in front continues to be Corey Vincent holding court. Ryan Luza going to get that run off of 2, but he's got no help from behind. Ottinger going to slide into that outside line. Look at that outside line run.
Here comes the 53 of Luza. He's going to be neck and neck with Corey Vincent. The battle's going to take us into turn 3 for the penultimate time as Nick Ottinger sits on row 2 looking for a way by, but he cannot find an opening. Give the advantage to Corey Vincent. Second to last time they come to the start-finish line. They're going to get there. White flag in the air. 1 lap to go.
2 by 2, and here comes Ottinger to the inside. We're going to go 3 wide down into corner number 1. Could this be the move for the win? Ottinger is going to take that inside line. Vincent going to try to power out on the outside. Ryan Luza is there with them as they head down the back straightaway. Oh, this is going to get tight.
Oh, contact. The 27 is going to get turned. Vincent in front of the field. White flag, so we stay green. It is Eric J. Smith to the point. He comes down. Leahy to the very inside. Side by side in the final quarter. Zelensky peeks on from 3rd, but it is a move to the outside for Eric J. Smith, who's going to hang on. 3 wide at the start finish line. Race winner at Fontana. Eric Smith steals the win. The road to $100,000 takes on No Limits Texas. We're from the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. We say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round 4 of the 2019 eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series. So happy that you're with us for another Tuesday night of eNASCAR action right here on RaceSpotTV and the iRacing Esports Network as we get set to go green flag racing tonight. For 250 miles, we bring you back into the booth alongside of myself, Evan Pisoko, with Tim Terry and Randy Chen at the big point. As we get set to go racing tonight, Tim, the drivers wind down their warm-up session. 2 new teams have entered the fray starting this week. One of them headed by 15-time Cup Series winner as a crew chief, Steve Letarte Esports, drafting Chris Shearburn and Nathan Lyon, and 2018 Daytona 500 champion Austin Dillon brings Team Dillon Esports into the fray. They will see Ben Nelson and Blake Reynolds driving their cars, so 15 teams now in the field.
And some sharp-looking race cars as they get ready to hit the grid and we get ready to go racing. You see your championship points on your screen. This one is going to be big here, Evan, and we're getting ready to see 167 laps unfold.
Drivers are on the grid, ready to rock and roll. Let's go trackside. Take a look at your RaceSpotTV starting grid for the second week in a row. It is the Junior Motorsports Camaro of Michael Conti on pole position. He will be joined in this one by the number 36 machine. That is Chris Sherburne, scheduled to roll off on the outside of the front row in the number 2 spot. Bobby Zalenski, Ryan Michael Lusa, 2 more big names going to make up row 2. Going to be 3rd and 4th respectively for them. And Nick Ottinger rounds out your top 5.
Keegan Leahy came close 2 weeks ago. He'll start from 6th. Matt Busa in 7th. Jimmy Mullis in 8th. Brian Schoenberg in 9th. And Yarrell T in 10th.
Brad Davies is going to roll 11th tonight with Zach Novak in 12th. Christian Challoner in 13th. Cody Bias 14th. And Corey Vincent rounds out your top 15.
16th spot right there as well. That is going to go to the number 4 at 8th in line. One of our newly drafted drivers for Letard Esports. Behind him, Field Diaz will start from 17th position. It is Adam Benefield at his right-hand side at 18th at the back of row 10. Ray Alfala. Michael Garilli around through your top 20.
Team Dillon Esports driver Blake Reynolds will roll off from 21st. Dylan Duval 22nd. Logan Clampett 23rd. Ashton Crowder 24th. 2 of the Burton Kligerman Esports team. And Garrett Lowe rounds out your top 25.
Casey Kerwin in 26th. King Cook in 27th. Michael Guest 28th. Logan Kress in 29th. And last week's first-time winner, Eric J. Smith will roll off 30th.
Got a long way to go to look for career win number 2. Brandon Hayes-Cattell's 31st, with Jake Nichols in 32nd. The rest of the field as follows. Chris Overland 33rd, Nicholas Shelton 34th, and Benjamin Nelson in 35th position, with Malik Ray P36, Timmy Hill P37, Casey Tucker in 38th position, not actively on the grid, and then Ryan Lowe 39th. Going to round out a look top to bottom at your RaceSpotTV starting grid. We talk about this Texas Motor Speedway, 10th time in 10 years we've been racing here in Fort Worth, Texas. This 1.5 mile racetrack's got bankied from 20 degrees at 1 and 2 to 24 at this end of the racetrack. Tonight's scheduled distance 167 laps means we go racing for 250 miles. The pace car's down and in though at Michael Conti, familiar territory. He takes the green flag. We're underway from Texas.
He wasted little time getting down into corner number 1. The inside line's going to be the one to move first. Bobby Zalenski to the inside. Here comes Ryan Lusa, the 47 of Nick Ottinger, and Chris Sherburne hung up on the outside in that Letard Esports 36. Evan, I must say, those Letard Esports cars look pretty sharp. You're taking a look at the 36 there now on the outside. Nathan Lyon's car looks pretty sharp too.
Certainly some sporty looking cars. You're going to be able to easily identify where those ones are on the racetrack. But right now, Sherburne ends up tucked second in line on the outside. It is the 47 Nick Ottinger with a big opening lap, 3rd or so. Looks like actually 4th across the line with a 53. Being pinched down on the inside of the racetrack. And a caution flag. Already problems early in this one. And it is a big mess in the center of quarters 1 and 2. A lot of cars come screeching to a halt. And I think a lot of the damage centered around the Ashton Crowder entry. He's not even the first one to get involved in this one. You'll see the RaceSpotTV replay there. I think the 37 is where we got to get those cameras trained. Christian Challoner ends up being one of the first cars to get a bit of contact, and it looks like he was a culprit or victim maybe of Brad Davies with problems.
Yeah, it actually started ahead of Christian. It was that 88 car of Brad Davies. Just, I think, a little bit of contact to the center of the corner got him loose and not able to keep that thing underneath him. Ended up sliding up the racetrack right in front of the 37. And unfortunately, he's going to be getting a big shove from the 4 getting in the corner. And that's going to bring us to caution early and in a few cars nights really early on in this one.
You have to expect that incidents are going to happen like that off of the restarts. There's your good look at it there as the 88 and the 4 went into the corner together, and Brad Davies was helped a little bit off of the front nose of Nathan Lyon's entry. That is our opening caution flag of the race here from the Texas Motor Speedway. And really, before we got to talk about a whole lot of the action going on up front, that yellow will slow things down. A lot of shuffling, though, happened from the get-go there as the drivers on the inside of the racetrack got a good jump. The likes of Nick Ottinger and even a Jimmy Mullis actually made the outside of row 4 work. He goes 8th to 5th. Very short opening run, though, to start this one.
Yeah, and a guy like Chris Shearburn on the outside had to hold on for dear life. He's going to restart in 6th, and unfortunately for him, he's going to start back on the outside line when we go back to green, but still obviously a long way to go. 167 laps to run here this evening, working lap number 4. And Evan, a lot of these drivers had some laps on the racetrack with a lot of their fellow peers in A Open earlier this week. Some of the practice races leading up, some time to get on the racetrack, test this new build. And when you look at those results from earlier in the week, or last night, Zach Novak, Kane Cook, 2 winners last night. I watched Ryan Luza on his Twitch stream and got to see how his car was handling, and race pace, it wasn't really that good compared to some of the other drivers. His best finish in 3 races to practice to get up to this race was 13th quick, or 13th best. So Ryan Luza trying to put the test sessions per se behind him, and so far so good. Qualifying speed is there. He's currently running in 3rd.
But not only is it a good opportunity for drivers to get onto the racetrack in some of the iRacing official races to get some practice in, equally as good of opportunity for us and you at home to be able to peek in and see how the drivers are doing throughout the week. Of course, a lot of the drivers on the racetrack right now also streaming their onboards, which is always fun to keep an eye on. The one thing I did want to mention, I said off of the grid that Casey Tucker was not there. He was supposed to start in 38th. He did not make it to the green, whether intentionally or not. That car did make it onto the racetrack. But he is obviously, having started from pit lane way back in the field, scored 36th position. Not lose a whole lot considering he was going to start that far back, but I just did want to let you know that all 39 cars that were scheduled to start this race have now gone onto the racetrack. And for as big as that incident was, I don't think anybody's called it quits yet. A Christian Challenger headed back down to the pit lane. A ton of damage on that JTG number 37 entry as he limps it down to the pit lane. There's certainly going to be some drivers working with those lasting effects for the rest of the evening, but so far it looks like everybody's still in this one after the early caution flag. On-board look with Jimmy Mullis slated to restart P5. Big mover in the top 10 early on.
Yeah, he really is. Great start from him, up 3 spots, and really it was only about a lap and a half run. But you're absolutely right with a lot of those guys really kind of keeping strong. No one calling it quits just yet. I think what happened at Auto Club, maybe a good learning curve from a lot of these guys, knowing that anything can happen and some very important points could potentially come in. Just picking up a couple spots when we get towards the cutoff, when we get into the playoff section of this championship, could be oh so important as the lights go out. And we're going to see Michael Conti bring us to green once again.
Of course, full running order at the top of your screen, but just to kind of reset things here, your race leader and control car still going to be Michael Conti. He's going to be able to look for that big jump like he got right out of the gate the last time. Don't expect him to get away, though. Again, the way that these cars can keep it flat foot for a good bit out of the gate. Zelensky, Luza, those drivers, I think you stack them up single file, and they're going to be able to lay chase pretty quickly. But Zelensky down to the outside of the front row, so he'll restart 2nd for this one. Ryan Luza also up a spot to 3rd. Anger up a spot to 4th. And Jimmy Mullis, as we mentioned, will start in 5th. So the big loser in all of that is Chris Shearburn, who started 2nd position but fell all the way to 6th. I don't think he was expecting the number 8 to go quite as quickly as he did. Certainly he needs to be more up on the wheel. You go on board with him. He'll be outside row 3.
And everybody filled in that inside line, so we'll see what happens here on this restart, see where Michael Conti goes, whether he goes as soon as his pace car peels off or waits a little bit, and see who fills in that hole on the inside, and we'll see if Zelensky can maintain 2nd place.
His car to head off it in. Let's see what the right machine can do. It was a very early jump last time. Conti holds him back a little bit more, puts the right foot down, and we go back into green flag conditions. 6 laps down at a restart from Texas. Much better go this time for the car on the outside of the front row. Zelensky tucks to P2. It's now 3rd place Luza. 4th is Jimmy Mullis, and Ottinger cannot find a spot in line from P5.
And the driver who is currently tied for the points lead in 6th, Zach Novak, found himself 4 wide coming off turn 2. They've narrowed it down to 3 wide as they head into 3. As out in front, it's pretty much single file. 62 of Keegan Leahy going to take a peek on the top off of 4, and I think he's about to get freight trained.
There's nowhere for the G2 entry of Leahy on the outside of the racetrack to go. You can see everybody else in front, single file lined up with an onboard look at Zach Novak. It's a great shot as how the only car to the outside of the racetrack in the top 10 is that 62 Machida Leahy, and I don't think that's necessarily by design. Now we'll spread him out a little bit more. The 36 is Shearburn to the outside. Novak still in line behind him, so now you've got 3 cars up on the outer lane of the racetrack as everybody's still flat-footed at a turn number 4. Conti holds the second or so, 1 car length advantage atop of Bobby Zalenski, and these cars pushing into turn 1 in excess of 185 miles an hour that time.
It almost looked like Keegan Leahy had a spot into line in front of Matt Busa, but he decided to keep on that outside line and try to make it happen up there. Now Matt Busa pokes his nose to the upside as Michael Conti continues to lead this train around. Leahy now has help with the Williams Esports number 5 of Busa. Behind them, Shearburn trying to get that outside line to work as well, but it looks like Leahy's found some help, at least for the time being, on the outside as they try to go to the front.
Certainly strength in numbers, and that's not typically something that you think about at a 1.5 mile racetrack. But with this 2019 Aero package, it is all about finding a line of cars and to a certain extent working together as there's more speed in the draft than when you're out there by yourself. You can see just how chaotic it is mid-pack. They look like they're 2x2 coming to a restart, but that's at full song from about 10th position through 20th is the view that you've got now. Side by side in front of this for second spot. To the outside goes Bobby Zalenski in the Interstate Batteries Toyota. But again, the outside hasn't been able to complete moves yet tonight, so that'll give Luza second place.
Speed just hasn't been there just yet, but we know that tire wear is going to be a big talking point. Is Zalenski able to get back in line in third? And you see 3 of those cars up top starting to actually line up just a little bit. Nick Gottinger, Keegan Leahy, and Matt Busa all currently running that high line just amongst your leaders. A couple of them shifting now back down towards the bottom through the quad oval. And the 47 actually going to get a run on the 46 in front of them and maybe make something of this on Jimmy Mullis. But if we can stay green and get some laps run, Evan, be interesting to see if those guys up top can maybe take a little bit better care of the tires and have something for these guys 20-30 laps in the run.
The Great American Speedway here at Texas Motor Speedway, known to be one of the faster, more abrasive intermediate tracks, certainly drawing, a sharp contrast to some of the racetracks that we have seen earlier this year, like a Las Vegas Motor Speedway, where we saw Ryan Luza head to victory lane for the second race of the year back at the end of last month, and another battle won by the inside. As you see, Busa now tucked in line in the number 5 car, having been able to hold off Jarl TNT and finding his spot in line. It's a small opportunity to maybe breathe a sigh of relief, and as we keep talking about, the outside's not working. That's not going to stop the 5 from trying. There goes Busa, high side on the 46 of Mullis. We'll see how this one plays out as Mullis tries to go low on Bobby Zalenski, but that door is shut as well by the Joe Gibbs Racing entry.
We see those drivers that prefer the outside line, and it looks like Matt Busa, Keegan Leahy, Chris Shearburn early, at least up near the front of the field, are those drivers that are trying to make it work. And speaking about making it work, it looks like he's going to try to do it one more time as Matt Busa looked to the outside of Bobby Zalenski. That time you see this battle in the middle of the pack. These guys trying to find where they want to go right now, and there's the 66 on the inside of Tien as he tries to hold his own. That's just around the 10th place position.
Here on P10 is where you follow that battle. Tien scored 9th the last time at the start-finish line, although he has just completed a pass on the 24 Cody Bias, another one of the newer teams, the Mode Motorsports entry. Got an opportunity to introduce them just 2 weeks ago in Fontana as they became the 13th team in competition. Now that that number has reached 15, 30 of our 40 drivers in this campaign and now officially associated with our professional racing or esports organizations. Fun to see that field continue to grow. Of course, all those drafted drivers get an extra payout, $500 bonus for being picked up either in our draft at the start of the year or as the season continues to work on. So maybe breathing a breath of fresh life into the 24 Bias. He's feeling it, and he's in front of this battle now as you see Dylan Duvall in the 42.
I don't know if I define him as in front of it. He's definitely part of this entire fight, though. Really, this whole train of cars is pretty much fighting and jockeying for the same bit of racetrack with one another. It's not really separated out until you start getting towards the front of your field, but still the mid-pack is a scary place to be with side-by-sides everywhere. I believe I see Jarl Tien, or actually no, that may be the 62 of Keegan Leahy trying to go side-by-side and make some spots up on that Mode Motorsports driver.
And right behind Leahy, our biggest mover tonight so far, Garrett Lowe in the 28 machine on the outside, started 25th position. And yes, keep in mind there was an incident, a couple of cars got tangled up, but with only one yellow flag and only 17 laps complete, Lowe has gone 25th to 8th position now on an absolute tear as he tries to work the outside line. He's sandwiched between Bias and the 27 of Vincent.
And he enters in the top 15 in the point standings as well, coming in to this race. Obviously a little bit early in the season, but if you can start making your move closer to the front of the field, and kind of quietly so far this season as well, as he's got that 62 to the inside of Keegan Leahy, who falls back a little bit. Dylan Duval moving up through the pack, and I know you guys had mentioned Dylan Duval, Cody Bias. I know they worked with Justin Bolton a little bit on setup stuff, and Justin Bolton was pretty quick last night in some of those test races, so maybe they learned something a little bit to put into their race cars, and it looks like so far so good. Dylan Duval on the move, Cody Bias on the move, and they're looking at top 10, if not a little bit more, early in this run with 20 laps completed this next time by.
Yeah, finally with an opportunity to stretch our legs out. Surprised actually with how well Michael Conti has handled this. Of course, being the control car gives you a big advantage. You dictate the start of the race, and we did see those second, third, fourth place cars catch up to him. But that is a healthy gap of about a half second right now for the driver of the 8th. Then you got that little bit of a fight for second. Lewis Ottinger pretty much staying on one another for second, third, and then a little bit of a gap back to pretty much that single file train of cars with Bruce Zelensky. And then here the battle is with Cody Bias and Jimmy Mullis, and Garrett Lowe's not satisfied with plus 17. He wants a little bit more. He's way out the racetrack in turn 2. He'll squeeze to the outside of Mullis. That's one way to make a lane.
Yeah, Renegade driver is going to make himself a line up there along the top side. Let's see if he can hook it up and get the run coming through the quad oval off of 4. He's going to get the momentum as best he can. And then the 46 car of Jimmy Mullis, I think, is quickly going to be in the rear view as something obviously went wrong in Garrett Lowe's qualifying, because he is moving. I think this is the quickest we've seen anyone all season long really be able to dice their way through the field.
And he completes that move. So just as we were talking about the few laps maybe that the outside line took to become a viable option, maybe as you start to see some tire wear, the inside no longer the quickest way around. Got to feather the throttle a little bit. Certainly Lowe's been able to make the outside work. I mean, he traced the line at Cody Bias that last time through, and he gains on the number 24 Ford. Wants to go to the outside. I mean, the inside was wide open there. Could have easily have gotten inside of positioning. Instead tried to go up top. Again, thinking about the crossover at a 2. We'll see if he takes this run down the back straightaway to make it a challenge for P6. Yes, he does. They'll go nose to nose, and we'll see if that car could operate on the bottom as well.
Just enough of a run to get to the inside of the 24 of Bias, but can't make that move complete as they come back across the stripe. Didn't have that momentum that he really needed, Evan, to make that move. Now he goes back to the outside line. We'll see if he can set it up one more time coming out of corner number 2. And as you see in front, the top 5, a single file and a little bit of insurance between them as they run here. So a little bit of breathing room for your top 5. The closest battle towards the front is this battle for position number 6. And you see there that Lowe didn't really get a whole lot of a run between 3 and 4, and he'll have to reset and try to get back up to Cody Bias.
And a battle that's kind of coming to nowhere is a fight for the race leader right now. Michael Conti's half-second advantage that we just checked in with has completely evaporated. That is Ryan Luza all over the back bumper, as he had kind of been hanging out at a safe distance back in the number 2 position, has very quickly closed up and now sits only a car length and a half off of your race leader, who has led every lap from the start of this race. Of course, I mentioned the differences between the Texas Motor Speedway and a Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Both though 1.5 milers at the end of the day. Luz has got the only win on this kind of a racetrack this year, and he's looking sporty tonight. To the inside he goes. First challenge for the race lead tonight.
He's not going to be able to get it just yet, but side by side down the back straightaway and in towards turn 3, that 53 of Ryan Luza might just be able to make something of this down along the bottom, hugging that white line. Can he get the run off the corner he needs? Wheel to wheel once again, and I believe he's just going to get it at the stripe. Going to be a photo check to see who is leading that lap, and by 2200, it's going to go to the 53 of Ryan Luza, who picks up this race lead. And we've seen this the last few races, Evan. We've seen the likes of both Brad Davies and Michael Conti qualify well, and in the early goings be able to stretch out a bit of a lead. But once we get deep in these races, it seems like the junior motorsports cars just don't have the tire wear to keep themselves out front, as they stay side by side off of 4.
It's about as far apart as you could be. We'll be in side by side. Michael Conti not at all interested in pinching that 53 down. They were dead even that last time by. The gap 0.000. But look at the 8 car way up high. He's not squeezing the 53 down. Conti really likes that run off of the corner there. But finally, Ryan Luza is going to be able to get up in front of him. The 8 look to the inside. It doesn't happen. And new race leader from Texas, 28 laps in, he's got it. Luza Busa going to go to the point.
And we've seen this before at a Luz's team. This car continues to get better as the run goes on, so we'll see if he can pull away at all from Michael Conti, or Conti can keep with him. Nick Ottinger in position number 3, and a little ways back, as you can look back to see that JTG Doherty number 47. There's the battle on your screen right there between Matt Busa and Bobby Zelensky. Busa once again liking that outside line. He'll go to the top side on the 18 of Zelensky, and they'll dance for position at number 4, coming through 3 and 4.
You can see the 18 now come up and off of the corner as he gets a little bit loose that time, awfully close to the 5. Matt Busa's car much more planted all the way from the entry to the exit, and he did have the advantage in this fight for 4th at the start finish line. Looks like this time down at 1 and 2, he is going to be able to close the deal. Yes, he does. So Busa up to P4. That is +3 for him on the night. Zelensky falls to 5th. That is down 2 from where he started, as he's not willing to give it up, though. He goes right back down to the bottom of the racetrack, but might be a losing cause there as Busa continues to stay in front. The 18, though, not wanting to give this one up. He's got about an 0.8 of a second buffer to the biggest mover of the night. Still more positions gained as we watch these couple of battles up front. Another spot in favor of Garrett Lowe. He has now gone 25th to 6th. That is not all that far back of the group right there. Now you see him.
Yeah, next spot, if he can get to that 18 and the 5, those fights, if he can get around at least one of those guys, it'll put him up +20 on the night. So we've just gone deep enough into this race that he's not passed a car a lap pretty much on average. He may be a little bit bummed about that, but still fantastic drive from that 28 car of Garrett Lowe. And out in front, Matt Busa and Zelensky still moving all over this racetrack. One lap they're down low, next lap they're up high, just going back and forth with one another.
And we'll see how long they're going to be able to keep this up. Again, that early caution flag kind of checked things up, so it really hasn't been a 32-lap run to start this race. However, we're really starting to get into it now as drivers begin to separate. About top 34 cars separated by 9 seconds. That wide shot gives you a good look, and I don't think there's any battle that's got more than a half a second between them until you get back to some of the damaged race cars. Kane Cook's a lap down with damage in 38th, and Christian Challoner is 8 laps down in 39th, also with a heavily damaged race car. But everybody's still in this one as you see them come flying down the back straightaway and into the quarter. Ryan Lewis now running away with the race lead. The gap up to 0.7 of a second. In fact, Nick Ottinger closing on Michael Conti for second, a 1/10.5 better that last lap alone. So we'll see what the 8 machine's going to be able to do here as he starts to lose those tires and we get deeper and deeper into this run.
And I think we're going to see Matt Busa close in on these drivers. And as I say that, Bobby Zelensky goes back to the inside of the 5 of Busa. 2 laps ago, Matt got a really good run at a turn 2 and was able to clear Bobby Zelensky and pulled away a little sideways that time at a corner number 4. But now Bobby Zelensky keeping him honest in front in car number 5 of Matt Busa. So keep an eye on this Williams Esports car. Is still working that outside line. I think he's got a little bit of speed. The question is, can he get up to Ottinger, Conti, and does anybody have anything for Luz? As you mentioned, Evan, a lot of these drivers up in the front just trying to get up here, pick a pass if they can, and ride a little bit here. Lots of laps to work here, working lap 35 of 167.
Just trying to kind of follow everybody throughout the rest of the field. It hasn't been a fantastic start for the Ray Alfala machine as Bobby Zelensky goes to the inside of Busa for 4 just to finish that point. Alfala stuck in 19th in a battle with Brian Schoenberg. This is a battle, though, inside of the top 5. Zelensky on the bottom again, really pushed up, couldn't stay in the gas, and I mean, Busa appears to be pretty locked in and confident with that outside line. We saw the same thing when Conti was getting chased down. Didn't waver, stuck with his line. Obviously wants to play his own game. But if obviously the number 18 machine and Zelensky can keep this one up, he's coming back to life here in the Interstate Batteries entry. Back down to the bottom all the way with those left side tires at a white line. But he cannot clear him. So he's not going to be able to slide job him. He's got to get out of the throttle. It gives the 5 some light. But I think Busa's done. Lifts out, gives him the spot, says, fine, you want it, you take it. Not worth it at this point.
Especially because he has a 28 of Garrett Lowe that has been able to reel in about 10 to 12 car lengths on that lap. With them fighting side by side like that, their nose to tail, this is going to become a 3-way scrap, and it's going to be Garrett Lowe here shortly. I think give him a couple laps, he'll pretty much be all over that 5 car of Matt Busa and potentially making something of this. But as we run, Evan, we need to start thinking, currently running lap 38, probably not far off from first round of pit stops, really.
Not that far off at all. In fact, 167 lap again scheduled distance for this race. 3-stop strategy would put you in the ballpark between laps 40 and 45 or so, or you could, in theory, I'm sure, stretch it a little bit longer, but we may see some drivers start to split off and make different decisions, especially now that this race is broken up a little bit. You've got some separation. I think you're starting to realize what you've got on a short run, what you've got on a long run. Probably unlikely if you're 6-7 seconds back of your race leader right now that you've got a winning car on the same strategy, so you mix things up a little bit. But all things considered, corner speed still pretty consistent. 167 was the slowest I saw Michael Conti go the last time at the center of the turn, and 185 was the max I saw him go in. So again, there isn't a ton of variation in these quarter speeds for these drivers, as that 47 of Ottinger continues to chip away. He's been the better car the last 7-8 times around, and he's almost there now. But a role reversal. It was Conti on the outside line when Luza challenged for the race lead. Now he uses the bottom to try to hold off Ottinger.
And as you watch out from Conti, keep a half eye behind them, about 12 or 15 car lengths behind. You see the battle between the 5 of Matt Bussa, the 28 of Garrett Lowe. Lowe now to the inside, Bussa to the outside. There's two drivers that like that outside line, Evan, and Garrett Lowe, it seems wherever that car goes, Garrett Lowe can make it happen. Slides right up in front of the 5 of Bussa, and they go down into corner number 3. Bussa will lose one more, and oh, by the way, here comes Cody Bias. Bias takes a look to the inside of Bussa as they'll dance for the spot. Bias up the racetrack at a corner number 4, trying to get every piece of real estate he can to make this thing happen. Bussa going backwards, and it looks like Cody Bias, Garrett Lowe, two drivers we talked about earlier, early in the run making moves, Evan, now coming back to the front of the field.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I don't think you normally see somebody really lose a ton of time 20 laps into a run and then 30 laps into the run, all of a sudden they pick it up. So I think that goes to show you that it is still a learning process. And of course, if you're not as familiar with this eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing series, of course, this is the 10th season of competition on the iRacing.com platform. As you see the 6 of Zach and Novak come in, all these drivers, all these teams have their own custom setups on them that they've been working on for weeks building up to this race, especially with the new package. So a lot of these cars may drive differently, and again, that could be by design. But I said 40 to 45 is the window. Lap 43, our first couple of cars were in. Luza doesn't bite from the race lead, neither does Conti, Zelensky, but Garrett Lowe's in. He comes in from 4th spot, so he's going to be one of your first major players to enter in the Renegades entry.
46 of Jimmy Mullis is going to follow him down on towards pit road as well. And just to give viewers an idea of the lap time difference you're looking at with new tires, right now drivers still out there are running mid to low 30s. At the start of the race on new tires, you were running mid to high 28. So it's nearly a 2-second drop off on the tires. So these guys who have already come down pit road, as the 8 car of Michael Conti's going to peel off onto pit road, are going to be circulating out there roughly 2 seconds quicker per lap. And we get a look on board with Burton Kligerman Esports driver Logan Clampett. Had a fantastic top 10 last night in the World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink Championship season opener at Volusia. He's hoping to pull off another top 10 here today.
It's a good look at that NASCAR America on NBCSN Toyota. In fact, he's tucked up behind Blake Reynolds, again one of the newer drivers to have been picked up by a team in this 2019 campaign. And we'll see if Clampett decides to dive down to the pit lane or not. No, but the car in front of him is. To pit lane comes Dylan Duval, and you can see just how locked in Clampett is there. Got to pay attention. These drivers aren't going to give you a heads up on their pit strategy, so when you're down there on the white line, you got to be anticipating something like that to come. And the 42 made a good entry, and it was a good job of everybody else around him to give him space to do so.
Yeah, you got to make sure, you got to anticipate what's going on in front of you, especially coming out of turn 4 with the pit road entry the way it is. Luza, Zelensky, and Bussa, top 3 stay out on the racetrack, and looks like Keegan Leahy has caught Matt Bussa, as you see the 99 of Clampett coming down onto pit road on this lap. But everybody's starting to move and shake, and we'll see who extends their runs as close to as they can to the end of the fuel window, and see who decides to come down and maybe make this a 3-stop race.
But it's always interesting, you know, the way that we see how these races play out. You would expect the shorter pit strategy to be the one that you want to go for. As Randy, you mentioned, the intervals on the tires and whatnot. quicker you can get on the fresh tires, better time you're out there putting some down good laps, and obviously overall a net gain. However, for somebody like Zelensky, the way they run right now with Matt Busa now under fire actually with Keegan Leahy going to his inside. So in the midst of a pit cycle, we've got a side-by-side fight for third. Leahy unable to carry the speed he wants down into that corner. The 5 comes down in front of him. Both those cars still out onto the racetrack. There isn't a ton, though, that separates that 3-stop strategy from a 2-stop strategy. Working close to lap number 50 the next time through. You put 5 more laps in on this run. All of a sudden, 2 stops plausible. So if I'm a Ryan Loser running up front and leading this race, I don't think I would go this deep into a 3-stopper just for the sake of doing it. Now, maybe if you're somebody else, you go off cycle, you mix it up. But 53 machine, don't be surprised if he's going with a different call than what about a half of the field has done. 24 cars on the lead lap, everybody else down a lap, almost 50-50 so far.
And it's great to see these guys pull off different strategies, especially from the guys out front. And it's sort of one of the interesting talking points with this series, the way almost the pit stop meta changes and is sort of interpreted up and down the field. You see some of those drivers start trying to slice and dice their way through the traffic. If we look at the fight between 7th and 8th, between Corey Vincent and Blake Reynolds, you flash back a couple years ago, championship runners PJ Sturgios and Ray Alfala, they pretty much went that entire championship year in 2016, going longer than everyone else did on the tires. Last year or two, things have shortened up a little bit as the preferred strategy. So it's good to see some teams deciding to maybe go and make this a 2-stopper somehow, some way. You're probably going to have to get maybe a little bit closer to 60, I think, to really make it worthwhile.
And they're almost there. I mean, lap 51, if you're able to get to 60, that's going to be well within your number. Of course, you have the fuel. Everybody's got the fuel to be able to do this. It doesn't require any fuel saving, to make the difference from a 40-lap runner so to a 55, 60-lapper. Of course, maybe you need to be a little bit more disciplined with your tires. And again, Lou's pretty infamous for being a very good car in the long run as you go on board with Michael Conti, trying to get up and around Garrett Lowe. This is a fight for position. It is 25th and 26th, and look at the 18 comes up in front, fresh out of pit road, and that is really going to hurt Conti's hopes at the outside. He had to lift as Zelensky came up and took his line away.
And that's the great thing we see with all these pit stops happening. We see those different strategies and guys trying to slice and dice their way back through the field because you don't want to lose any time on pit road or coming out of pit road, and you also don't want to lose any positions as you see Lowe and the 8 of Conti continue to battle Garrett Lowe. That car got better as the run went on in the first run, and now we'll see what he's got on this second stint of the race as Conti goes to the inside, and we'll start to see the strategies play out and pan out here as Ryan Luza continues to stay on the racetrack. He'll lead lap 53 on the racetrack.
Pretty evident that they are going to go different directions in this battle, and once all of these cars, if we assume that the 24 or so drivers that have yet to come down to the pit lane, if we're going to assume they're going to go for a 2-stop strategy, once they come down, it is a bit of a gamble because they're not going to cycle back to the race lead. The Contis of the world, the Lowe's, the Ottingers, the Mullises, they've been out there on fresh tires, putting down faster laps for a good amount of time now. So once all these cars pit, they're going to be significantly behind, some of them maybe even a lap down. But of course, when you have one entirely less pit stop to play through, in the end, after 167 laps, you're hoping that your strategy is the right one, but it is a gamble. A yellow now really hurts the cars that are already pitted. A yellow in 20 laps is going to hurt the cars on this different strategy, so you got to have a lot of faith. All these drivers come into the race with a set strategy in mind. I don't think that first yellow really mixed it up too much. If we start to get some more over the course of the night, that's when you're going to have to adjust and call some audibles, play that one on the fly. But so far, I'm thinking this is exactly what Luza, Zelensky, Leahy, Teen, and Busa wanted as they still hold down the fort 1 through 5.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting watching this strategy play out, especially these drivers who are doing this 2-stop. You're going to have the added benefit as well of those drivers are going to be on newer tires and quicker than the drivers that have already come down pit road. So this entire race is going to be this ebb and flow of who's on new tires, who's on old tires, who's got track position, who's chasing down the cars that have track position. And I really hope that this can kind of stay green as we get really towards the end of this race. It'll be really fun watching this tire battle really fight itself out as we're approaching that 60-lap mark that I sort of mentally and arbitrarily kind of set as sort of where you need to be at the 53. It now slides into his box.
Your race leader is giving it up. Ryan Lucid down to pit road at lap 57. So kind of right in that sweet spot between 55 and 60 laps as he comes in for what would be scheduled pit stop number 1 of 2. Zelensky immediately follows your race leader down to the pit lane. Also, you see Matt Busa. He comes down to pit lane in his Williams Esports Toyota Camry. So through all of this, Leahy going to go to the lead, but I think 5 laps from now, most all of this will have been taken care of.
Yeah, it'll continue to cycle through as you see the teammates of Leahy and Tian up in front of the field. Dylan Duval right behind, trying to get back on the same lap as the leaders. Dylan will move to the outside as they come up at a corner number 4, and Keegan Leahy will put another one on the board and lead this lap here. But once again, differing strategies there as the Simcraft 42 takes a look to the outside of the 2 teammates. The next one in line appears to be Blake Reynolds, as I believe we may have seen Corey Vincent come down pit road on this occasion.
And Vincent also another one of the drivers in this fray. He's on to the pit lane and pretty much housekeeping at this point to wait for the rest of the cars to come down pit road. I don't think that you can stretch this for the one stopper, so it's just a matter of preference. 59 laps in, Leahy gives up the race lead. That looks like a team call as both of those G2 Esports cars are in together. I'm sure they're liking a view right now, 1-2.
Yeah, I'm sure they are a little bit, but they're not going to have it for long as they roll down on towards pit road. Only a few cars have yet to make the call. Blake Reynolds, Casey Tucker, Ray Alfala still out there on the racetrack. Ryan Lowe, Michael Gariglia. So all the people we were watching earlier as the race leaders slowly starting to work their way back towards the head of the field.
And it looks like with Reynolds and Tucker, Alfala, and the rest of the group, that this is going to be about it as Tucker is down pit road. Alfala also coming down pit road. So you kind of have to scan the horizon to find out, well, who's going to be winning out in this battle for the cars that have completed service. It may very well be Conti, who is still in 13th position right now. Still a little mixed up with drivers pitting. Timmy Hill down to the pit lane, another spot that he's going to pick up. Reynolds, another driver that we wait on, but there's 2 very definitive strategies in this race, and it's almost an even split between the 3 stoppers and the 2 stoppers. And you know, for however many drivers are trying it in each respect, you really want this thing to go green so you can see how it plays out.
And we're seeing a lot of the drivers that were outside the top 10 and trying to really gain something on this strategy, Evan, start to run the tank dry pretty much. Ryan Lowe being one of them, qualified in 39th. He is scored as your leader, and he is down to the inside. I would think that Ryan Lowe would be down this time by. Nick Shelton is scored in 2nd. He qualified in 34th. And here comes the 7 of Lowe down onto pit road. Does Shelton stay out? No, he comes onto pit road as well behind. So there's 2 drivers that qualified outside the top 30 on the 2-stop strategy, trying to change their luck a little bit and change what they put themselves in on qualifying here this evening at Texas. They'll come down and get service of their race cars, and Conti will go back to the top of the board.
And as I just mentioned, by the way, Timmy Hill, who had been running, I think Timmy Hill now out of this race, that car has gone behind the wall. So I believe he's going to be the first driver to get the DNF in this one, as he may have gotten into the wall before he came down to the pit lane, parked it. So his night is going to be done. A short evening for him as we close in now at halfway in this race. This portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by PEAK Antifreeze, the official antifreeze of the 2019 eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series. Conti now with a complete full circle. Once again, your race leader from Texas, 6/10 in front of Garrett Lowe. And now you have an opportunity to kind of figure out what happened with those 3-stop cars that pitted about 20-25 laps ago. It is Conti atop Lowe, Ottinger, Mullis, and Novak. Right now, your top 5.
Yeah, and a couple new names that have worked their way up in towards, picked up a few spots over that cycle. Garrett Lowe up to 2nd, and Zach Novak into P number 5. A couple cars seem to really get it wrong on pit road. Ryan Luza falls all the way back to P7, currently fighting with some lap traffic in the 24 of Cody Bias out there on the racetrack. So those guys really pushing it, and maybe a little bit too hard if you're Ryan Luza. Seemed like not a great strategy from him the way things have played out, but he's going to be working his best trying to get his way to the head of the field.
And the 24 Bias also slided back a little bit here in that fight for position with the 6 haven't been able to get up and around him. And now Ryan Luza, also the latest driver to complete the pass on the 24 Bias. Bias decided to make his pit stop at lap number 46 in this race. 20 laps later, a little bit on the back foot of some of the cars who stretched it a tad bit further. And In fact, you can see in sharp contrast to the G2 cars that came down together, Tim, Cody Bias right now running in 7th position, not all that far in front of him. Teammate Philip Diaz scored 35th position as well. So the mode cars not on the same page, whereas some of the other teams are sticking and putting all their fruit in one basket.
It might be trying something different in case we don't get a caution late, and maybe trying some different things. Maybe it's just driver preference or crew chief preference the way they want it. But you see that number 75 on your screen, the Mode Motorsports car, as he continues on here. One name that I'm seeing now after we've cycled through these pit stops, Evan, is Zach Novak. We haven't talked a whole lot about Zach Novak, tied up top for the point lead. There he is on your screen right now in the Roush Fenway number 6, and currently scored in position number 4. He's got some ways to work towards the front of the field. Was very quick last night in a couple of the A Open races, and but really haven't talked about him a whole lot this evening. Now up to position number 4 behind Ottinger, Lowe, and Conti, and only 2.7 seconds out. He was one of the first ones to come down pit road on the 3-stop strategy, so we'll see how that shakes out for him. But right now showing a little bit of speed, and oh, by the way, the driver he's battling for the point lead, currently behind him on the scoring monitor, Ryan Luza in 5th.
They came into tonight tied for the championship lead, 120 a pop, and as they sit now, it would be a 1-point advantage for Novak as we leave the Texas Motor Speedway tonight with 4 races of 18 complete on 2019. He's the best car, in fact, in the top 4 now. Problem is, the best car in the top 5 is Ryan Luza, who's behind him. So everybody chasing down on the Your Race leaders, and Luza isn't that all far back from the 6 car. They're both in a big pack here. They're the only 2 lead lappers in it.
Yeah, and that 6 car, if the 53 is able to get to him, really shouldn't fight with this too hard. He's lapping by about 6 to 7 tenths per second quicker than the 6 car Zach Novak is. So if I'm Ryan Luza, I'm pretty much hoping that 6 car will pretty much open the door for me, but with all his traffic around him, it's really hard to be able to make something up. When we talk about your championship points leader and Luza tied with it as well, those top 2, I think one driver, Evan, that we're deep enough into the series to really talk about has not gone off on the right foot. You can maybe almost start saying maybe not even in a position to potentially fight with his championship this year. Ray Alfala not had a great start to this season, has been basically caught up in incidents, I think pretty much 3 through the first 4, 3 of the first few races. He's currently right now stranded down in 24th, has not done nothing but go backwards all day. So the dominant driver in this series since its inception, maybe having an off year in 2019.
And the way it sits now, all but, again, I mentioned Timmy Hill out of this race. 38 cars, therefore, still in this one. A brief break in all of the action. Your 3 stoppers, though, not that far from coming back down into the pit lane. With a lot of them having to pitted just shy, or pretty much right at 45 laps into this race. Telling me that pit stops are 15, 20 laps away for, I think, a majority of that group would pretty much cross up right out with halfway point in this 167 lap contest. Garrett Lowe has been putting down a couple of solid laps as he's been able to close the distance on race leader Michael Conti, having been able to stretch a little bit from Ottinger, and I think that may be where your eyes have to go shortly. It is one of the closer battles on the racetrack right now. Conti started very differently than where Garrett Lowe did. As you see the gap between him, Michael Conti is your pole sitter. He has controlled very much a lot of the pace in this race. Garrett Lowe has had to drive through the field, and he made a big point of mentioning how good that Renegade's Ford was on the opening run. Now into the second stint of the race, he is not slowing down at all. He's up 23 spots to second place.
And as you look out from Garrett Lowe up to the number 8 of Michael Conti, you got Brandon Cattell up there trying to get back on the lead lap and pull away from Michael Conti. The one thing I want to mention, though, Garrett Lowe, the Renegades team, we saw last week how Corey Vincent ran so well, and Corey Vincent running well here this evening in position number 12, qualified in 15th, but had such a great run last week. Garrett Lowe having a good run this week, and I'm sure they're looking to move up the team standings a little bit and put Renegades a little bit closer up to the top. But right now, momentum in this new rules package, it kind of has to be on Renegade's side, at least the way they are running in these 2 races that we've unveiled the new build and the new rules package. And Garrett Lowe flat flying right now as you see Ottinger on your screen. That's Ryan Luza to the inside, and that is a battle for position number 3.
We weren't lying to you when we told you that Ryan Luza was coming. He was able to leapfrog Zach Novak. I thought the 6 might have been able to stand a better chance at all of this, but Easy does it on the inside line. Slides up and in front, so give Ryan Luza now 3rd position. Interesting that, again, he is somebody who has been able to make tires last for so long, and we talk about the abrasiveness of trying to hook that car up at the bottom. It might tend to hurt you a little bit. Somewhat ironic that Luza, who's one of the better long-run cars, rings it around the bottom of the racetrack. Well, Nick Ottinger up only about a lane or so off of the outside wall. You see him, the blue and white ZL1, the number 47 entry for JTG Doherty Racing, gets pinched in a little bit by lap traffic, the 75, right in the mix of things as well. That's Phil Diaz, who is on a 2-stopper. So Garrett Lowe's resurgence or charge to the front has simmered down a little bit. Let's see if Luza is going to be the next big player in this group up top. His lap last time, a 30.110. Not as fast as either of the cars up front.
Yeah, his lap times are starting to plateau a little bit, and that's something we always talk about. When you're on new tires versus an older set, it's always going to be, that's the biggest difference. The deeper you start getting into the run, though, it's not like you just hold a 3/10 or 5/10 advantage all the way from there till that car that presumably pit before you did comes down pit road. So for Ryan Luza right now, starting to stabilize a little bit, and he'll probably stabilize around this fight with the 28 of Garrett Lowe. That said, 2/10 quicker that time, so the 28 needs to know that 53 is coming.
He's consistently with those 30.1s, and Michael Conti is in the similar range, so I wonder if that was just a missed lap for the Garrett Lowe entry or not. But the HyperX sponsored Ford Fusion right now in 2nd position has to be happy where he is, but I don't know, aside from coming down to the pit lane, if he's seen a car pass him at all tonight. So might be a little bit weird for him as Luza is going to squeeze the gap in, and that really shows to be there. So Ryan Luza gained nothing on Michael Conti that last lap. He was 1.6 behind. He is still 1.6 seconds off your race leader. But Garrett Lowe lost a 10th to the leader, falling back to Luza. So it's not so much Luza catching second. It is Lowe, I think, starting to struggle a little bit quicker as we get into this run and get within about 10 laps of pit stops for these guys.
And as Randy mentioned, it might be the crew chief telling the driver of the 28, Garrett Lowe, to step it up a little bit, or the 53 car is coming, and maybe trying to get a little more out of that Renegades race car than he might want to right now late in this run. Ryan Luza once again gains a little bit of time, that time on your leader, Michael Conti, but now he's got to try to navigate this 28 of Garrett Lowe. To the inside he goes, as they'll go side by side for the runner-up spot, down through corners number 3 and 4. Phil Diaz right behind them, trying to make something happen, try to get a little bit closer, maybe get a lap back on the field, but Ryan Luza to the inside of Garrett Lowe as they'll dive it down into corner number 1. The battle for second rages on, and as they were side by side, Evan, Ryan didn't lose a whole lot of time to Michael Conti.
He did a pretty good job because he didn't have to differentiate from his line. The 28 machine of Lowe's been running up top. That worked perfectly for the 53, who could just stay down on the bottom. There was no pinching or adjusting from the 53 machine. I don't think it's going to be a fantastic lap time this time through, but he does complete the pass, so you can move Ryan Luza now up and into the 2nd position, officially being able to get by him. And again, he did lose a little bit of time to the 8 car up and in front of him. But, more rubber getting put down in this racetrack lap by lap. Trap temperatures way up when you talk about the dynamic track and the dynamic sky model in the iRacing.com service. It's 71 degrees out, but track temps 103 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not helping you preserve the tires at all.
And that might be one of the things that makes all the difference and really helps these guys that are going for the extra pit stops. And we'll say, Evan, it's going to be interesting to see these guys stretching the 2-stoppers. When do they come down pit road? Because I don't think you can do 60-some-odd laps like we saw these guys do. Ryan Luza, for example, came down on lap number 56. And remember, we had a few laps of caution at the start of the race that likely would have helped you getting that fuel economy up. So when do you actually come down pit road? Is it going to be a little bit closer to 100, or are you going to try to stretch it to 110 as close as you can? Meanwhile, like you've been saying, we're probably expecting those going on 3 stops, probably down within the next 10.
And that time by, we crossed the halfway point in tonight's Texas 250. So let's take this opportunity to look at our iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game with with professionally organized racing by NASCAR and more. And as we say that, Michael Conti is going to give up the race lead to Ryan Luza, who takes over the top spot. Garrett Lowe, therefore, going to be scored in second position. So Conti falls to third. He'll continue to drop as Zelensky's fifth, and Keegan Leahy now takes over that position. Corey Vincent scored in the number 6 spot. Michael Conti 7th at the moment. Dylan Duval is 8th. Jarl Tien's 10th. Casey Kerwin's 10th. All these cars only going to be out there for so much longer.
Chris Shearburn currently scored in position number 11 on the last lap by this. This continues to change as everybody gets ready to come down pit road, picks up those extra positions. Matt Busa, Casey Tucker, Blake Reynolds, Logan Clampett, among those that had just changed the last lap by, as you see on your screen. Casey Tucker, the last time by, scored in 16th place. He's moved a little bit on the scoring monitor. Looking down, Blake Reynolds, Logan Clampett, Malik Ray, and Michael Gaston. Randy, they continue to move on us.
Yeah, Evan Pasoko not choosing the greatest time to do our rundown, but with the strategies playing out, in some ways, where you're on track doesn't really matter until you get to the end of the race. But 21st, Brian Schoenberg, Ray Alfala, 22nd, Ben Nelson, Adam Benefield, 23rd and 24th, Ryan Lowe in 25th, Michael Gariglia, Chris Overland, Nick Shelton, Eric Smith, and Logan Kress rounding out your top 30. And then, Evan, I'll let you do these last 9 while you regret your decisions.
Yeah, I'll get the couple of cars that aren't going anywhere. Laps down. Now we got some familiar names. Michael Conti giving up a lot of spots. Zach Novak, 32nd. Cody Bias is 33rd. Jimmy Mullis, 34th. Logan Kress, 35th. With Crowder, Cook, Challenger all the way through 38th. Still on track. Timmy Hill is in the garage. And maybe we'll keep that live tracker up on the left-hand side of your screen for just a little bit longer so you can get an updated picture at how this one works out. Listen, you got to do the midway race break at midway. You got to start the iRacing plug. And, of course, right when you get to the running order, the old dive down to the pit lane. That was a look, though, at your iRacing midway race break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, you can visit iRacing.com and sign up today. And if you use the promo code PR-eNASCAR 2019, you can get your first 3 months for just $10. That comes with 14 cars and 14 tracks. Again, more info at iRacing.com. So the good news is we had an idea of when they were coming down to the pit lane. May not have been the best time for us to take a look through the running order, but it stays on strategy. Those are all, again, the drivers that are coming for 3 stops total. 2 of 3 now in the books. So Ryan Luza cycles through, takes over the race lead in this one. He having completed a pit service earlier in this race, and we wait for him to come down to the pit lane. His last pit stop at lap 57. We would expect him much closer to lap 110. That would be his final pit stop. Same with Zelensky, Leahy, Vincent, Tien. Those top 5 now have cycled back to the top of the scoring pylon.
And you caught it a couple of laps ago when Michael Conti was coming through the field, but Bobby Zelensky and Keegan Leahy about to put on a battle, I believe, for second before they come down onto pit road. There's the 62 of Leahy just in front of him, Bobby Zelensky, and they're seeing a lot of these drivers make their way through that have just come down onto pit road. Saw Conti a few moments ago. Zach Novak has already made his trip down to pit road, so some of these drivers working their way around the slower traffic, and right behind there's Corey Vincent, a part of this battle as well, as they'll come up at a corner number 2. Look at the run that Vincent gets down to the inside. He goes on Keegan Leahy. That'll be a battle for position number 3. We'll see if the 27 gets a little sideways there. I was about to say Bobby Zelensky might have a little bit of an opportunity to step away from this battle as they're side by side, but Corey Vincent had to catch that race car down into corner number 3. Great save, but now it opens the door for Keegan Leahy to go to the inside.
It just goes to show you how aggressively he was driving it down and into the corner on the old tires, and the 2 remaining cars going to duke this without advantage to Leahy as he slides up in front and completes the pass on Bobby Zelensky for what right now is second position on the racetrack. And just to kind of provide some context to how all of this was going on, you might be thinking, well, where were these cars before everybody dove back down to the pit lane? Well, while they were on the off cycle, they actually weren't doing all that bad. They were at the tail end of the top 10 once as your time intervals start to stretch out even further. But of course, these drivers last pitted at lap 58 are on that 2-stop strategy, and I think that Luza has kind of shown himself as the clear advantage for this group of cars. 4.6 seconds ahead of Keegan Leahy. It is a little bit more comfortable, Randy, to the 1.7 or so that Michael Conti was working on the rest of the 3-stoppers. So if you put Luza and then Conti as the 2 best cars, or at least the best positioned cars on either strategy, one of them is still going to have to beat out the other one. This could very well come down to those two cars finding each other at the end. We've seen races in the past here with this eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing series where two cars with completely varying strategies on 100-plus lap green flag runs find each other and battle to the end, or one of these strategies could just be far and away better than the other. Each driver, I'm sure, and all these teams that have made their calls are confident in their decision, but at the end of the day, someone's going to have to be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, that's really going to be the fun thing to watch, isn't it? And what, in all likelihood, what it may come down to is if these strategies end up working out relatively close in terms of time, I would say the 8-car of Michael Connie will have a huge advantage over the 53, simply put because he'll be on newer tires and will likely be able to be a lot more flexible in where and how that car will be able to work on the racetrack. With that said, what I would expect to see at the end of this race, if we can stay green, is having to see that 8-car really chase down probably at least a half a lap disadvantage over Ryan Michael Luza to reel him in and even be able to fight for the win. So there's going to be two questions. Is how are tires going to come into account if the 8 can catch the 53, and how much is the 8 going to have to burn his stuff up to get to the 53?
And you can see now as you watch some of these battles continue to work through side by side with the 24 heading on through. Fresher tires for the lap to entry of Cody Bias, who will go trying to at least get back to the lead lap if he can get all the way around to losing. He's currently scored in 28th position after starting, again, a lot earlier on into this one, in the number 14 position. This portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Blue Death Diesel Exhaust Fluid, certified pure #1 diesel exhaust fluid. As we sit now again in limbo, 10 laps removed from pit stops, 10 laps to go to pit stops as our lead group of about 23 or so, maybe 22, maybe the magic number, to come down to the pit lane for what would be the final time tonight. Again, all of this assuming that we mind our P's and Q's and stay green. We've had a couple of interesting plays, fresh tires, old tires. You meet each other in the quarter exit and it gets a little bit hairy. Certainly green flag pit stops, one of the more treacherous points, but I must say, I think everybody's done a very good job getting these cars slowed down to pit speed of 50 miles an hour so far.
I think the driver that's on the move here in this late group of drivers to come down pit road is Corey Vincent. We saw it a little bit earlier, made that move on Keegan Leahy, made the move on Bobby Zielinski, and now he runs in position #2, and he continues to chip away just a little bit at Ryan Lewis's advantage. Obviously, it's 3.5 seconds or so between those top two cars. Probably not going to get all the way there before they come down onto pit road, but Corey Vincent's got a little bit of speed in that race car on the long run. So these guys doing 2 stops, and if he can get some quick pit work, he might be one to watch here as we get down to the end of this 167 lap race. We saw it last week. He had a lot of speed at Auto Club, and now he once again has some speed here on this strategy that he is playing out, but he's got some traffic ahead of him as they go almost 3 wide at a corner #4.
And they were thinking about it there. That's the 4 car up and into the mix here. Nathan Lyon is getting worked around. We mentioned him at the top of the show, one of the new drivers picked up by Letarte Esports. He and his teammate Chris Shearbird making their first team race, their debut here this evening. And if you missed that as well, Ben Nelson, Blake Reynolds also picked up by Team Dillon Esports. That one headed by Austin Dillon, 2018 Daytona 500 champion. So 15 teams for 30 total drivers represented tonight, as we had 39 of them take to the green flag this evening, and 1 caution through 103 laps. Great stuff thus far for a race that, you know, still had a lot of question marks. I don't think it was as much up in the air as what we had expected and what we certainly saw 2 weeks ago at Fontana, just a week removed from the new build. I know that you guys had made the point earlier that a lot of these drivers had been testing this package in some of the iRacing official A-Open races, which is pretty much the top class of official racing that anybody with an A-class license on the service can participate in.
Yeah, and it's really a great thing. That's always the big talking point of all the things you can get involved with here on the iRacing service. Not only NASCAR stuff, of course, but you can go road racing. You know, we have 24 hours of endurance-style events. You can run single-seaters. You can run on dirt as well if that's your swing as well. But still, things are going to get interesting, Evan, here in the next handful of laps. I'd say we're about 8 laps out from those drivers on 2 stops coming down pit road and likely stretching it around 55 laps to the end. And I think if you can go any extra little bit on this second run, you're going to want to have those tires as new as you can as you set up for that last and final run.
And there's so many cars, and again, it's not like you got some on 2, 3, 4 stop strategies. It is somewhat easy to keep track of. You know, if you assume that Michael Conti is still the one spearheading that other group, he's in 16th position right now, and you've got, you know, Lowe and some other drivers mixed into the fray as well. You've got an idea of where they sit as you get a look at Michael Conti right now. Behind him, that is Nicholas Shelton and then Garrett Lowe. Shelton kind of wedging himself in the middle of all of this, having most recently come down to the pit lane for him. Of course, varying strategy from those drivers significantly earlier on in this race. So, you know, off cycle a little bit, you start to blur the lines. But you got your 2 stoppers, you got your 3 stoppers, and both group with 1 more pit stop still to go in this race. Of course, with the lead group, the loser group going to be coming down shorter, you would think at 17 seconds or so you've got on top of Michael Conti. He's looking pretty sporty right now.
Yeah, the strategies are going to come together, I would think, at the end of this race. As Randy said, we've seen it play out so many times in this eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing series where we get long green flag runs, and both of those strategies seem to mesh at the end. And I think of Michael Conti, his crew chief Brandon Hastings always seems to have that formula figured out as to what run is going to be the quickest, what is going to be, even if it's 20 seconds quicker on the long run at the end of it, Hastings and the crew seem to have it figured out. And Michael Conti right now is still continuing to carve his way through the field. He's currently up to position number 15. He just made the pass on Adam Benefield to put him up into that 15th place position. So we'll see these guys in front of him come down pit road within the next few laps or so, and Michael Conti will probably go back up to the top of the board, but I know he's got a sharp whip on the top of the box.
You can see Luz, in fact, your race leader now being overtaken by some of those lapped machines with the fresher tires. The 24 latest driver to come up and challenge him is another driver that we've been tracking, Cody Bias, now going to make it 24 cars total on the lead lap in this one. But as we close it on pit stops, we'll go silent on the microphones for a moment, let you listen in with a little bit of Race Spot fan immersion. It's lap 110 of 167. Blake Reynolds is going to stay out onto the racetrack, but your race leaders are in. Corey Vincent diving to the safety of pit road. He will complete his pit stop final on the night for that strategy. And he is not the only driver down and onto the pit lane as well. He's got company. Michael Guest also on pit road. Tucker into the pit lane as well. So here come your final group of 2 stoppers as you see the race off of the pit lane. There goes Vincent in the 27, now rejoining traffic. Leahy right behind him. Going to be a critical battle between those two. And now Blake Reynolds, who we enjoyed a lot of that onboard action with, brings his Team Dillon Esports car in.
Ray Alfalla had that thing pitched sideways coming onto pit road from second place to get that thing low down to pit speed, and onto pit road for service. Ryan Lowe on the racetrack. You see him on your screen. He is scored as your leader, and one of those drivers that stopped at the, or started at the back. Watch Ray Alfalla here coming down onto the apron and has this thing completely sideways, and then once he gets it on pit road, he has to woe it down, light the tires up to get that thing slowed down to pit speed. So Ray Alfalla had a handful here in the Wood Brothers number 21. We talked about him having a slower start to the season, Evan, and doesn't look like it's really going his way tonight at Texas, but we'll see how this pit strategy plays out for him.
Yeah, when we went on board with him there, he was 10th position and then 9th. But again, you have to keep in mind that is about 10th or 9th position on his specific strategy. That puts him closer to P20 or so in the grand scheme of things, assuming that, again, one of these stops isn't by far and large the better decision, and they'll somewhat kind of blend into one another. But your number 1 pick in the draft, picked up by the Wood Brothers, has not had an excellent start thus far to 2019, as he also, like everybody else, tries to get adjusted to these all-new race cars that they're having to go out there on track and deal with. So now Michael Conti finds himself back leading this race atop the number 28 machine to Garrett Lowe, who's in second position. Zach Novak in third. Nick Ottinger fourth. Cody Bias in the number 5 spot. Still a pit stop to come for these cars. That's why they're out into the race lead right now. Their decision is going to come within about maybe 10 laps or so, 10, 15 laps, unless you want to make it a little bit of a longer or shorter run to the end. Again, you do have the leniency in your fuel to be able to do so. And while I mentioned fuel, do also want to note that as we were on board with a lot of those cars, we did have a car that actually ran out of gas down the back straightaway. That was Ben Nelson, I believe, who ran out of gas down the back straightaway. So his entry has fallen to 22nd. He had to coast about a half a lap to be able to get the pit road. Not that he would have liked to also make it a debut with the team.
Yeah, that's pretty much a disaster situation. I mean, it may have been he just missed the fuel number, and to make the strategy work, had to coast that extra lap in order to at least get it under the belt. So to be able to make it to the end without having to do a splash and dash at the end. So hopefully for Mr. Nelson, he can make it at least here all the way towards the end of this race without coming down pit road. Again, I will say, Evan, it's going to be interesting to watch if any of these guys who have not yet come down pit road, what kind of strategy do you go with in addition to this 3-stopper? Do you make your third and final stop a little bit early, maybe even come down right now and try to sort of have a tire advantage that sort of equals with those guys like Ryan Luza who are already back out on the racetrack on new rubber, or do you wait as long as you possibly can before you come down pit road? I think we're going to see, of the dozen or so drivers we see running this strategy, you're probably going to see that and decisions made on that all up and down the spectrum, and probably, I think, see cars coming down within the next 5 laps.
That would set them up for about a 42-lap run or so to the end of the race, and that would be pretty on par with, of course, all of the other runs that they have had so far this evening. It is just a question of now, are you confident in what you've got? Do you want to try to maybe match another strategy? We saw Casey Tucker do something similar, kind of modifying his own strategy, pinning the rest of cars around him because maybe he wasn't confident in his initial decision. I think if you're Conti or Lowe, though, you are in a battle for the race lead right now, and not to mention that you have to be worried about the other drivers on their own call, but you got to be worried about each other. That's only half a second between the driver of the 8 and the driver of the number 28 machine. They are setting up to make for an exciting finish regardless of if it ends up being for the race win or not.
And you just saw on your screen Casey Tucker. He's had to come from behind this evening, and last time I scored in position number 15, and there is Garrett Lowe on your screen, the 28 car, trying to reel in Michael Conti for that lead position, about 0.7 of a second or so behind the Junior Motorsports number 8 as they continue to duke it out here. Right behind on the scoring monitor would be Zach Novak, who sits in position number 3. There's a battle on your screen. Novak to the outside there as we see the 5 of Matt Busa to the inside. Some of these drivers on the newer tires making their way through, but that 6 car on the outside is your 3rd place driver. Zach Novak was quick here last evening during the races that he got sat in. There's his teammate underneath him of Michael Guest. We'll see how Novak shakes out. He's battling for that point lead, but he's still got a little ways to go here to try to close this deal.
And I think grand scheme of things, of course, not going to have an opportunity to win out in this championship, obviously, this early. And unlike the real-life counterpart of the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, as Ottinger in the number 47 machine thinks about it, but we'll be coming down to the pit lane here shortly. There is no automatic win and you're in to get into the playoffs. So you are going to have to be consistent throughout the course of this entire 2019 campaign. And maybe that influences the decision on if you're going to make a move that goes for broke to try to get the win, as opposed to maybe settling for a decent result.
You guys go.
And the 6 of Novak just came down pit road on that last lap by, so there's the final pit stop happening for him. As all kinds of action around this racetrack. You see the 5 on your screen of Matt Busa working his way back up through, currently scored 1 lap down in 22nd position. So one of those most recent drivers to come down. There's Chris Shearburn. We talked about him off the start of the race, falling back a little bit off that initial start before we saw that first caution early, and now he's back in the top 10. Last time by, scored in position number 10 as he battled with Blake Reynolds right there. So Chris Shearburn, one of the veterans in esports, making his way back up through, and right now battling for a top 10 spot late in this one with still a few laps left to go and still some strategy to be played out.
Yeah, so certainly an opportunity to try to make a little bit of a minor adjustment to whatever your call is going to be as this one gets down to the wire. But at this point now, you're going to be out onto the racetrack with just yourself and a fast race car, hopefully, and it's time to make it happen. A 47 of Ottinger from the race lead. He will also come in, give up the top position. So Ryan Luza now back to the point in the number 53 Toyota. We still await his decision on how far, if assuming that he's going to be able to stretch this one. The final pit stop for him, lap 113. So the 2-stop call for him should be able to get that Flipside Tactics car all the way home.
And now it's just a matter of watching. Can these guys on new tires really be able to reel in the likes of Ryan Luza? The gap right now advantage is huge in favor of Ryan Luza. It's a full lap that the 8 car of Michael Connie, for reference, is going to have to reel in and get by that number 53 car. 38 laps, Evan. That's going to be a big ask trying to make that happen.
It certainly is, and that's why I think once we both kind of realized that there was only one pit stop left, that it was Luza working a double-digit second advantage over the top of those other cars, that the 2-stopper may have been the call. All of that comes to, of course, your tire fall off, how you're able to work it, and I'm sure all these cars, whether they decided to go 2 or 3, tested both, and came to a conclusion, long runs, whatever call they wanted to make. But you go on board with somebody like a Logan Clampett right there as he finds himself still in the thick of things. 16th position, has been able to make improvements after starting in 23rd. But again, a lot of series veterans finding it difficult to kind of get their feet underneath them so far in 2019. And I think Clampett, another one of those drivers, working with some damage on his car. Certainly that is not helping him.
And fell behind the 8 ball at Daytona, missed that first race of the season as well. So he's had to claw back his way through there, and right now still trying to get back up near the front of the field.
19 cars on the lead lap at the moment. It is Luza holding that healthy 4.5 second advantage over Keegan Leahy. And I mean, barring a late race yellow, Cody Vincent tucked in line 3rd position, also a driver on the same strategy. Dylan Duvall has been somewhat quiet, in fact, this evening. His pit strategy has him, I believe, the last time that Duvall was on pit road was significantly earlier, lap 87. I think he's trying to stretch this one out, get a yellow. I don't think Dylan Duvall is going to be able to go to the end of this race. The independent currently scored in 4th position. It would be quite an upset. He's kind of the lone duck up here in this group of 2-stoppers.
I mean, if Dylan Duvall is able to stretch this to the end of the race, we'd be probably getting a pending announcement that Tesla is joining NASCAR as he actually comes down pit road. So maybe just trying to push it, like Evan said, and catch a yellow, but he is going to have, of those drivers on this three-stop strategy, the shortest final run with tires of the bunch of them. So maybe look for him to maybe have a slight advantage and potentially reel some guys in late in this one.
Yeah, he'll have fresh tires now. The flip side of that is you stay out. If it was indeed he trying to stay out, catch a yellow, you're going to be giving up time staying out on old tires, but he will have probably some of the freshest set as he gets back out onto the racetrack and looks to make the 30 or so lap charge to the end of this race. But again, if you're in a position where you're not going to go for the race win, I don't think it hurts you. If it costs you 1 or 2 positions, I don't necessarily think it's going to be the end of the world if you finish 20th or 22nd to stay out and maybe try to get lucky. Sometimes caution flags come out, and a lot of drivers over the course of this series have won races, and I'm sure just as many have lost races from a little bit of bad luck, but Duvall will cycle in down 1 lap at the moment. So it is a sprint to the end now from Fort Worth, Texas. This final portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Herculiner Truck Bedliner. The tough comes easy. And it looks like Keegan Leahy wants to make a late charge, doesn't want to make this one easy for Luz. The gap down to 4 seconds, the closest it's been in some time, but it is still a healthy margin.
Still a healthy margin with the laps that are left on the board right now, Evan. That 4-second margin manageable right now, but we'll see what happens with Corey Vincent. Vincent currently runs in position number 3 as well, and he's only a second behind Keegan Leahy as he makes the move on a damaged Chalner car. Reynolds currently scored in position number 4, and Chris Shearburn in position number 5, and they're not too far away from each other. They got Casey Tucker there as well, but they're about 6 or 7 seconds or so off the pace of position number 3, Corey Vincent, right now. So still a little ways to run, and middle of the pack right now, right around guys like Blake Reynolds and Chris Shearburn. You got some guys zipping through on different strategies. You want to talk about guys that are coming back through the field. Dylan Duvall just came down onto pit road. He's going back through the field, and you got Phil Diaz right there, and then you got guys that are battling for position. This is where it gets intense. You don't want to be that guy, Evan, to bring out the caution flag. Sometimes these guys are walking on eggshells, making sure that they're not that guy to trigger that caution after the long green flag run.
And sometimes that can even be counterproductive. If you're not just going out there and running your race and you're trying to be a little bit extra careful, sometimes it actually causes more issues than you advert by, lifting a little bit earlier and changing braking points and whatnot. It can catch some of the drivers around you, so it's best to just lock in. You're talking about watching the 37 with, it looks like Kane Cook onto the pit lane with damage, not officially retired, but for all intents and purposes out of this race. You're looking at the best 37 oval sim racing drivers in the world. We'll see if they're able to lock it in and keep this one going on a green flag run now that's more than 130 laps long.
Yeah, I mean, we got to remember, we've been on this run pretty much since the start of the race. We had an early caution, and I believe it was the first lap, really, and we've been green ever since we brought that one back. So now we just need to keep an eye, really, what kind of lap times are these drivers on the 3-stoppers that have come down pit road doing. Michael Connie circulating the racetrack with a mid-29s. You compare that to Ryan Luza, 30.1, so about half a second is what Michael Connie right now is reeling in to potentially try to get to that number 53 car, and he's got 22 seconds that he has to rein in at that pace, Evan. Michael doesn't have the time or the speed to get there.
I think it became clear that the decision to go for the 2-stop strategy was the better one, and Michael Conti, race-winning speed. I mean, that's a fast car. This was his race. It's not like he got forced into going for the 3-stopper. This is the call that Junior Motorsports team thought was going to be the best decision. I'm certainly thinking that he's going to be able to get some positions out of this. Probably a top 10 car easily, but, where does that climb stop? Does he get to P7 or P6? I think that's going to be a best-case scenario if this stays green. There's no way he's getting a second per lap once his tires start to fall off.
No, absolutely. Once you get through that run and once you get some laps in, you're not going to gain a second a lap when you're gaining about half a second or so, or 0.6 right now. So Michael Conti still needs to get up on the wheel. There's Ray Alfala on your screen. Michael Conti right behind, and that is a battle, I believe, for position number 8 as they come up at a corner number 4, and they come across the stripe, and Michael Conti will move back up and move one more spot ahead of Ray Alfalo. That is for 9th as they go down there. And Randy, this thing continues to change and ever evolving. Where do you see Michael Conti shaking out in all this? Because I know you run the numbers too.
I think he'll probably be somewhere around the top 5 at the absolute best. Maybe even, maybe get to like the Casey Tucker or Jarl Tien, although Tien's a little bit further, or not that far up the racetrack. But I just really question the strategy of all these guys that run the 3-stoppers, looking at it now that we're at the end of the race, because with that 3-stop strategy, you're always coming down pit road more, and you're getting rid of track position, so you're always putting yourself on the back foot in terms of catching a yellow. The likes of Ryan Luza and Keegan Leahy and Corey Vincent, everyone else who ran 2 stoppers are more likely to catch a yellow. If this strategy doesn't work on the long run, how are you trying to make that 3-stopper work? I just don't understand really the logic at all, because I think for them, the race going under green, if you're going on 3 stops, should have been the strongest way for this to pan out for you. So if you still end up 10, 15 seconds off, I don't know. We've seen this a couple times where teams will come down pit road an extra time, and it never seems to pan out. As Corey Vincent and Keegan Leahy, close fight for them for second.
It's a pretty good fight right now for the number 2 position. The one thing you got to keep in mind for the 3-stopper is basically you have to find an extra lap. Is it worth getting, is that extra pit stop at the extra speed? Can you make up a lap? Are you going to be a lap faster because you're giving up a lap? So you need to at least get yourself back to even, and then of course make up for about another lap or so. So 2 laps maybe total. That's about a second per lap, second and a half or so, averaged out over the course of 167 laps. Certainly doable. We've seen strategies like this work in the past. But again, and I go back to the point that I made earlier, Tim, about the fact that these cars don't lose a ton of time over the course of a run. Again, with this new package, and they're not lifted on the brakes quite as much. Corner speed in the center, not that far off of what their max speed is at the end of a straightaway. I think it's changed the dynamic of what kind of calls can work.
Yeah, it's definitely changed a little bit of the pit strategy, and that's the same thing, trying to work around this new build, the new package, and also trying to think in the back of your mind what pit strategy is going to work on this race this evening at Texas. And so far it looks like this strategy that Luza, Vincent, Leahy are on, it looks like it's panning out for them right now. And speaking about that battle for a second that you see on your screen, Corey Vincent's been able to pass Keegan Leahy, but the downside is that he hasn't really been able to make a whole lot of time up on Ryan Luza. It seems like Corey Vincent will chip in a 10th or 2, and then Ryan Luza will pick it up a little bit, get out of traffic, and Ryan Luza will run around the same lap times that Corey Vincent is. So I don't know if Corey Vincent's going to be able to reel in Ryan Luza in the last 20 laps of this race, but now that he's clear of traffic, this is going to be his best opportunity to try and do so. But I just don't think he has enough to get there with Ryan Luza running the way he is, and he might have a little bit in reserve too, trying to save a little bit here, knowing he's got a 3.5 second lead.
Yeah, but I don't think you want to be too comfortable. Corey Vincent last couple of times, the better car. So not only is you can kind of check the box and say, all right, well, those the 3-stopper, excuse me, they're not, going to somehow end up a ton of, distance ahead of us. It's not like you end up where you're 10 seconds behind. It loses confidence. So now I think you kind of put Michael Conti out of your mind. 20 seconds back, less than 20 laps to go. Realistically, without a yellow, that is not going to happen. So now you have to look at the cars on that same strategy as you, the one that maybe you've interacted with a little bit more over the course of this run. Keegan Leahy, who had been following for quite some time in the number 3 position. He's still on the back of Corey Vincent. Both of those cars are gaining on you by a 10.5 per lap. Now that's still a very tall order to ask with 17 laps left on the board this time by, but certainly a lot more doable than one of the 3 stopped cars pulling a Hail Mary. So for Luza, keep an eye on that interval. You can play it safe. You've got time to work with, but you don't have a huge cushion. One small mistake, and they're going to be breathing down your neck.
And it is one of those things to keep in mind, though. Ryan Luza was in traffic for the last handful of laps, but still, the likes of Corey Vincent and Keegan Leahy are routinely pulling in 1 to 2 tenths every single trip around the racetrack. And if they can maintain that, and especially if they can get through this gaggle of cars in front of them, that will make that into a fight for the race lead. If the spotters are smart, especially in the 27 and the 62, they should be talking and working together a little bit, saying, we do not want to fight right now, because at the moment we are reeling in that race leader. there of Ryan Luza. Half a tenth that last trip around the racetrack as second and third start getting into the lap cars. But I would expect the 27 and the 62. They may not be teammates, but they may as well be, as the Ford and the Chevy try to chase down that Toyota.
I think it helps out that Corey Vincent is the better of these two cars. I think if Keegan Leahy had that small advantage, or if they were dead even, that maybe there would be a little bit more of a negotiation per se over who sits second and who sits third. But certainly wouldn't be the first time, Tim, that working with somebody would help you both out. But that's not normally how these drivers like to think late in these races.
No, not normally. You want to go out and try to win that race or get that position for yourself. And think about big picture at the end of the day, too. If you can get one more spot, that's one more point than you would have being stuck behind another driver. As you see the battle on your screen, that is Blake Reynolds and Chris Shearburn. Two drivers being drafted this past week, and two drivers on different teams. Dylan Esports and Letarte Esports going at it for a spot late in this one within the top five. And that yo-yo or that slinky has come back together. The accordion's come back together for Chris Shearburn. Started up front, fell back a little bit, and now going back to the front to the outside. He goes on Blake Reynolds, and he'll pick up position number 4.
He takes over the number 4 position. A good spot into the positive for Chris Shearburn there. Reynolds slides to P5. It is a big stone's throw from your top 3 back to 4th out of back. We're talking about Leahy, Vincent, Luza, all within 3 seconds of one another as of the last time by. And it is a big jump. 30, to the 36 of Chris Shearburn, 14.5 seconds until you find the rest of these cars. Michael Conti has been able to crack the top 10. He sits in the number 8 position right now, but again, I still think he's going to max out in that number 7 spot. I think Casey Tucker, P6, may be a tall order, but Vincent, 2.2 off. Interval that time, 2.1. He's certainly making this interesting, but if I'm Luza, I'm still pretty comfortable. And there's a good bit of lapped cars in between those two that is now going to wreak havoc on the 27. So vice versa, with the 53 had to deal with a couple of laps prior.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how Corey Vincent is able to deal with this. I will say he's been quicker through the traffic thus far. There's not been a single lap that Corey Vincent has not been quicker than Ryan Luza. A little bit of drama in front of him, and we're about to shake everything up as Challoner gets caught up in an incident through the quad oval.
After 135 laps of green flag racing, a caution just outside of 10 laps to go is going to completely reset this race as Christian Challoner, a slow and damaged car, disposed of by Matt Busa, who was in the battle with a couple of cars around him, didn't want to lift and open the door for Ben Nelson, and instead sent the 37 around.
Yeah, I don't think he really wanted to let out, and late in the race, I don't think he anticipated Challoner to really be that slow coming off the corner as you ride on board with Ashton Crowder and see what happens in front of him. And there's a car right there, and he's going to get into it, and into the wall that he goes. Cody Bias going to get collected in it as well. Tough break for those two as they were trying to advance their position late in this one and pick up a couple of spots in the closing laps. But now we see caution. Question is, we've got less than 10 laps to go. Do you come down pit road if you're up front? Everybody follows you, right?
We've seen this play out. What do you do as the leader? In theory, you pit and everybody else stays out. At least that's your worst concern. Or you stay out and everybody else pits. What is the decision for Luza? It just looked like that he made the right strategy call. He did. But it's not always that easy at this top level of sim racing. What is the decision? He wants tires. Vincent is also in. Leahy from 3rd down to the pit lane. It looks like Shearburn in 4th position also going to follow down. And that was a long run to the end for cars on both of the two strategies. I'd be surprised if we see somebody stay out. Looks like a majority of these cars are coming down to the pit lane. Most of those that you are staying out are lapped cars. I think all your race leaders so far have ducked down.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's actually staying out that I've seen. I think everyone, like you said, Evan, who's stayed out is taking the wave around, and I don't see any crazy calls in terms of strategy either. I think I see 4 tires up and down this field. Really interesting to me that we don't see anyone go for a bit of a Hail Mary strategy inside of 10 laps to go, because the next caution would end the race if we were to get one. So this is usually, I think, where you'd see someone try to do something crazy, but as far as I can tell, every car just hit pit road.
And not always does it work out like that, but the race off of the pit lane, 4 tires and fuel for most. Luza, followed by Vincent, Leahy, Shearburn, and Reynolds. Garrett Lowe is 6th off. Michael Conti 7th off of the pit lane. Mullis, Lowe, Zelensky round out your top 10, and a plethora of cars looking for the wave by to get back in this 18th position through 31st. 1 lap down. I would beg to think that most of those cars are the ones that decided to go for the 3-stop strategy. They're now back in this thing with an opportunity to gain some spots late. But what looked like a guaranteed race win for Ryan Luza is now going to be up in the air because he's going to have to deal with a restart and a bunch of fresh race cars behind him. He doesn't get shuffled back in traffic, so he stays and should be the control car. That's good. Doesn't always work out that way. However, he's going to have to wheel this car if he wants to get it done.
And oh, by the way, looking late at this race and looking at your points picture, Ryan Luza up near the front of the points picture, running up front. Keegan Leahy's up there as well. Bobby Zelensky entered 4th in the points, and he's up in the top 10. Where in the wide world of sports is Zach Novak? Well, Zach Novak, the last time by, was scored as 1 lap down in 34th position. So not the night that Zach Novak wanted, but he's got some time. You never know how wild this restart or potential restarts could get. So we could see Novak move up a couple of spots, but one of those drivers coming in that's had a really good season to start off, and one of those drivers that I thought would be a threat to win here this evening is back in 34th. It's a good thing we're not playing fantasy tonight, Evan, because I probably would have lost.
Yeah, it's just been one of the nights as it shook out, not for Zach Novak, as he finds himself way off a car that did look pretty sporty, at least earlier on. And you know, we tend to make a lot about these intermediate racetracks. You know, we compare big tracks to big tracks and short tracks to short tracks. We do the same with the 1.5 milers. But you know, that race at Las Vegas from earlier in the year is a completely different race car. They may have looked the same, but I mean, the drastic change from the 2018 to 2019 Aero package makes this a completely different beast to drive. Extremely impressed by the fact that Ryan Luza has been able to find speed on this new car as fast as he has. I know he expressed that he was very worried about how this thing was going to drive, not fitting his driving style. Well, the lights are going to go out on top of the pace car, and he is going to prep up for a 6-lap dash to the end in search of his 2nd win of the season.
Yeah, 6-lap dashes all the way around cars, try to get to the tail of the field, and like we pretty much said, we pretty much have a 1-lap window where if we get a quick yellow, we might get a restart, but if we run a couple laps, that yellow, if one comes, is going to end it.
The point of no return looks like it's going to be about 2-3 laps from now, so still a chance that this may not be the final restart of the night. But if you are Ryan Michael Luza, you've got to get your elbows up and treat it like it is. Pace car down and in. What was a long green flag strategy-filled race is going to be white knuckle to the end for Ryan Luza. Green flag in the air. 6 laps to go from Texas.
Brought them down slow, and now the 62 to the inside. Keegan Leahy, that inside line, has an opportunity to pounce. Corey Vincent will find a spot in line to the inside in 3rd, and we saw it on the initial start of the evening. There's Shearburn stuck on the outside. He might have a chance to get down here. He will. And now where does Keegan Leahy go? Little block thrown by Ryan Luza.
Leahy looked high, but the 53 shut the door up top and on the bottom of the racetrack. Single file, they stack them up on a white line. Here they come at a turn 4. The 62 again tries. Left side tires are into the grass, and a caution flag behind them.
18 is Zelensky caught up in this huge incident, and did we actually make our window? I don't think so. I think this race just ended under the yellow, but what happened? Because that caution actually happened relatively deep, and I thought we were going to see the 62 maybe turn the 53 the way he was looking at the grass to make something happen.
You saw the flipping action from Bobby Zelensky. The replay shows that it started the 47 car of Nick Ottinger tight at a turn 4, gets up into the 7 car of Ryan Lowe, and then Zelensky's behind all of this, ends up getting slapped back up and into the outside wall as Ottinger worked on recovering that car, and it led to a huge incident that obliterated the number 18 Toyota, but it was at the line coming to take lap number 163. And the big thing to look at is when the caution lights came on, your field slowed down to allow the pace car to pass them. They did not catch the pace car, and that is 1 lap, and that is a big difference if this race does get a 1-lap restart at the very end.
And the one thing that Randy had mentioned is these two up in front wasted little time getting at it. And if we do go back to green, they'll be side by side instead of nose to tail like they were on that last restart. As you see the wave around car go by. The 62 of Keegan Leahy, though, made a couple of moves to the inside. Ryan Luza made those moves to protect that line. Did one on the back straightaway heading into 3. Did another one on the front straightaway. And as Randy mentioned, I thought they were going in the grass and it happened behind them. But those top two are going to be intriguing to watch. But Corey Vincent, if we do go back to green, is now going to be on that inside line as opposed to the outside on that restart, or the upcoming restart if we do get one. So we'll see what transpires here. See if we do get another green flag to finish off this race, and see what Corey Vincent can do. Remember what happened last week or 2 weeks ago, Evan, when we had a late race dash to the finish. Corey Vincent looked poised to pick up a win, and he ended up at the back of the pack after that last lap.
Yeah, big mess on the white flag lap. If you get to the white, doesn't matter what happens, this thing's going to race it out to the end. And it was a great challenge from the 62 machine in that battle for the race lead. We saw Leahy go high right away, then he tried to cut low, and they ended up nearly with a pass at the grass as we saw the caution flag come up behind them. The 62 had both left side tires down and into the front straightaway grass as the 53 shut the door. If he does get 1 lap to fight for this, the biggest challenge for the 62 would be the fact that he's just barely going to be getting up to speed by the time they're coming to the checkered flag, which means the block is going to be huge from Luza. And if Leahy dares wants to try to win this race, or even Corey Vincent, who would be theoretically coming from the inside of row 2, then he would also need to make a big move, not allowing the 53 to have time to try to defend. But again, all of that is a question of if, because this time by, we will take 2 laps to go in this race. If the lights go out on top of the iRacing.com pace car, it does mean that we are going to have a 1-lap shootout to the end to determine who takes home the 4th checkered flag of 2019. If the lights stay on top of the pace car this time by, we do not have time to restart, and the Texas 250 is over. So we'll find out at the start-finish line right here. Lights on top of the pace car are out, and we have a 1-lap shootout to decide it.
Oh, this is going to be crazy. You just mentioned the 27 car of Corey Vincent, and I really do think that 3rd place starter is the important one here, though. I don't think there's much Keegan can do on the outside with the 53 controlling the start. It's going to, I think, all come down to how good of a restart can that 27 of Corey Vincent get. Can he stay locked to the rear bumper of Ryan Luza, and how aggressive is he going to be trying to pick up spots? Because we could potentially see a huge junk if the 27 car tries to get Ryan Michael Luza loose on this final lap and potentially moves him ahead of the field. This is going to be one of the most exciting restarts of the year. We saw an exciting one in Auto Club, which was a fantastic couple lap fight to the end. 1.5 miles to decide this one.
And of course, we got to keep them all in one apiece to the white flag for this one to be official. But it is going to be a 1-lap shootout for the race winner from Texas Motor Speedway. Luza, Leahy, Vincent, Reynolds, Shearburn in the top 5. There's still 37 cars in this race. Pace car down. The field's in the hands of the 53 as he wants to get out of Dodge. Green flag in the air as we come to it. 1 more lap to go.
Tight restart. Keegan Leahy holding that outside line. Corey Vincent hasn't been able to get up to the back bumper of the 53 of Ryan Luza as of yet, and shuts the door. There goes the 62 to the outside. Corey Vincent to the inside. They're going to drag race behind Ryan Luza.
It's side by side for second, but here comes Leahy to the outside of Luza. Side by side challenge in turn number 3, but they're all going to box each other in. Luza sees daylight at a turn number 4. The challenge going to come to the outside. It's a big wreck behind them, but it is Ryan Luza, winner at Texas.
Ryan's been very fortunate on a lot of these late race runs. We saw him at Vegas, win out a close one, and he gets another one here at Texas. Didn't go his way at Fontana, but a little bit of drama as we cross the line means we get some interesting names in the top 5. Michael Connie, most notably, somehow rebounds to get himself into the top 5.
Quite the contrary to Ryan Luza, who I'm sure would appreciate it not dealing with any of that at all. That late race yellow and ensuing 2 restarts allows Conti to get a little bit extra. Very similar to what we saw just 2 weeks ago at Fontana, Tim. Photo finish to the end, Recchi behind him, but that is our 4th fantastic finish in 4 races this season.
And Corey Vincent followed Ryan Luza through, did not let Keegan Leahy go to the inside, and it looked like Keegan was going to have some sort of a run coming out of corner number 4, but just not enough steam to make it happen, and Ryan Luza once again goes back to the top and will celebrate here on the front straightaway as a winner at the Texas Motor Speedway, and well-deserved. Had a strong race car, played the pit strategy right, and comes home with a victory.
And he celebrates it on the front straightaway accordingly. 2nd win of 2019 for Ryan Luza. He was concerned about this new car. He's been able to make it work now on both of the intermediate racetracks thus far. And for a driver who has not been in this series for a ton of time, gets his 11th career win. He now passes Kenny Humpy for sole possession of 3rd in series history. That's it, though, from Texas. Let's take a look top to bottom at your RaceSpotTV full race results. Luza with the win. The official margin of victory, 0.055 seconds. The top Leahy, who comes home P2. Corey Vincent's 3rd, with Garrett Lowe and Michael Conti in your top 5. We will chat with them momentarily. Michael Gass does get a number 6 place result for this one. Ryan Lowe finishes in 7th spot. Casey Tucker's at 8th. Jimmy Mullis is 9th, and Nick Ottinger rounds out your top 10.
We'll move to 11th to see Ray Alfala make his way just shy of the top 10. Blake Reynolds comes home in position number 12 after fighting for a top 5 spot at the end of that one. Matt Busa, Brad Davies, and Ben Nelson, your top 15. Nick Shelton finishes in 16th. 17th is Jake Nichols. Chris Overland comes home in 18th. Michael Gariglia in 19th. And Brian Schoenberg brings home the double nickel in 20th.
Jarl Tien ends up in 21st, Malik Ray in 22nd, Logan Kress 23rd, Cody Bias 24th, Brandon Cantell in 25th, Adam Benefield 26th, Dylan Duvall 27th, Casey Tucker 28th, Phil Diaz 29th, and I think the big loser on that last lap incident, coming to the stripe, he was running 6th, got caught up, did not make it to the line, so Chris Shearburn will end up 1 lap down, finishing 30th, about 50 yards away from start finish.
He's got some more friends that also finished a lap down. That'll be 31st for Nathan Lyon, Logan Clampett in 32nd with Eric J. Smith, Zach Novak, and Bobby Zelensky rounding through your 35 cars. Behind them, Ashton Crowder 36th, Christian Challoner in 37th with Kane Cook 38th, and Timmy Hill in 39th position. Is a complete look top to bottom at your RaceSpotTV full race results, and it was yet again another finish that deserves a second look. We relive it here with RaceSpotTV replay as you watch these cars, Tim, redo that final lap.
And this is the wreck in the middle of the pack as they were all going at it for a spot. Dylan Duvall on the inside, and they all scatter from there. Jarl Tien in the middle of that, Brian Schoenberg in the middle, and as they come up to the front, Evan, they're going for the win.
And it is the battle for the win, and there was small hope there to the outside as he got the positioning, but Leahy just never had the help. A little bit of contact for 2nd and 3rd, but I mean, it was a big wreck behind them. But the challenge was, again, just that 1 lap and building up speed. Both of those cars, 2nd and 3rd, the 62 and the 27, had a good opportunity, but as we look at it again from overhead, what you'll really see here, Andy, is the fact that unintentionally, they're too busy fighting each other.
Yeah, I mean, they really were, but what else are you going to do? There's nowhere for Corey Vincent to go, and what else, you know, there's not a 3rd lane that Keegan Leahy can really run, so it's just unfortunate on that end. But as we watch here towards the rear spoiler of Ryan Luza, you can see this incident when it catches out the 18 of Bobby Zielinski and a handful of drivers. That blue car you saw spin up into the wall, that was Chris Shearburn, and that is the difference between getting yourself a top 5, top 6, and being 1 lap down outside of the top 20.
Another thrilling result as you see the onboard with somebody who was in the thick of things here with Shearburn. That just goes to show you that with 15 laps left to go in this race, we thought it was all wrapped up. Maybe Luza was going to have a challenger, but I mean, other than that, this thing was pretty much decided. And again, 4 races on 2019. We have been absolutely spoiled with 4 fantastic finishes. It was Ryan Luza this time playing defense at turn number 4 on route to victory lane. Let's go down trackside now and talk with your race winner from the Texas Motor Speedway. Second time for him on 2019. Ryan Luza is in eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series victory lane. We are caught up with him now. Ryan, congratulations on the win. Similar track to how you got it done earlier this year in Vegas, but man, the circumstances couldn't have been different. Excited to finish the new race car, and that curveball wasn't able to fool you. You guys are fast still, and you get your second win of the year, 11th of your career. Congrats.
Thanks, Evan. That was crazy. I wish we would have went green. That was a lot more stressful at the end, but thanks to them for racing me clean. I knew they were going to have just a huge run. That's like a one-lap shootout. It's probably the worst scenario for the lead car. But we hung on to it. I was worried about him going through the grass. Luckily, he wasn't quite there enough, and I was able to block it. But great race by everyone. Corey was real fast again this week.
This race wasn't looking like, as of 20 minutes ago, that this was going to be the storyline. It looked like it was going to be a matter of you picking the correct strategy to go for the 2-stopper as opposed to the 3. Before it all changed and we dive deep into those late laps, just tell us about the strategy on that very long green flag run that dictated this race, and how you came to the decision to make the call you did, because up to that point, it certainly looked like it gave you the race win.
Yeah, it was the right call. Thanks to Derek on the box for calling that. I wasn't really sure, but he made the call. We basically just got to a 30.2, I think it was, and stayed there after probably 25 laps. So we basically didn't have any fall off after lap 30. So that, basically would just mean we should stretch it all the way. Now the issue I had was a lot of us are burning fuel before we took the green flag on our 2 pace laps, and that put me in a situation to where I didn't have enough gas to do it, so I was kind of having to save, running the bottom every lap. But we were looking about a lap to the good, even without the caution. So that was kind of scary. I didn't want to Homestead repeat by any means. So just glad we were on the right call, and we were on the right strategy at the time of the caution as well.
Second time at victory lane this season, similar racetracks but completely different race cars. How has the learning process been? And I'm sure it's got to feel great to be able to get the same results that you used to be with all the questions that were lingering in the air when we said goodbye to you at Vegas. I
really think the key to this, I say this racing is better than Cali. Cali produced a lot more exciting finish probably from the last lap, kind of just craziness that went on. But if the track is hot enough, then it forces us to separate a little bit quicker. So as long as we get hot tracks, I'm happy. That's what I prefer, but, whenever we load in and everyone's looking at clouds, you're going to see a lot more bunched up racing like we saw at California.
So heading forward, we're going to continue to learn how these cars drive, and you guys, obviously, with a statement here this evening, getting your second win of the season. You look forward now to one of the few kinds of racetracks we really haven't been to yet, and that's a short track. Richmond due up next is... You'll fight for another $500 race day purse. What's the objective going into that one?
Just same thing every week. Try to qualify well. I feel like that's really one of the most important things, is qualifying well and keeping your track position, especially now with the aero dependency. But I'm really excited to go to a short track and get that horsepower back, and hopefully get a little bit more of our own independence as far as driver. I'm just really looking forward to Richmond. I think it's my best short track. I don't like Bristol or Martinsville much at all, but Richmond is one of my favorite tracks on the sim.
We're certainly looking forward to seeing what that one can do for you. Also, I made the point as you guys were doing the burnouts there that this is your 11th win in this eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series all-time. You break the tie with Kenny Humpy and now have sole possession of third most in series history. So as well, congratulations to you for that and the race win tonight. We'll let you get out of here. As always, though, anybody else you want to say hi to?
First of all, thanks to Flipside Tactics for being on board and drafting me. Thanks to G Fuel and Stats Helix for being on the car. Really just a huge shout out to Jarl Tien for all the work he's done. We were slow yesterday, and I hit him up on Discord and I'm like, man, we need to find something. And we found something this morning, and we tested. So huge thanks to him. Thanks to everyone at iNext Racing for the hard work, and Derek Bordeaux for being on the box.
The race winner tonight for the Texas Motor Speedway, third most winningest driver ever in the eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series. And if this is any indication of how the 2019 season is going to be, maybe that title will only last for so long. Ryan, we appreciate your time. Again, congrats on the W, and we'll catch you once more in 2 weeks when we see you do your thing.
Thanks, Evan.
Winner tonight in the Texas 250. A great opportunity presented itself late this evening for the 62 of Keegan Leahy. It's a runner-up finish for the G2 entry. Trackside with him is Tim.
Well, it's a second consecutive runner-up finish for Keegan Leahy after coming home in second 2 weeks ago at Auto Club, and now here. Keegan, we're getting used to this, I guess, in position number 2, but walk us through that final lap, because it looked exciting from up here. What did it look like from in the race car?
Wow, yeah, that was so crazy on the last lap. I had a really good start, but I think I had a tiny nose on him right when the green flag came out, so I had to pedal it a little bit to avoid getting penalized, getting a black flag for being ahead of him at the line. So I didn't quite get the run that I could have had, but I still stayed door to door with him on entry to 1, and then caught back up to him on the backstretch. But really, that bottom line's so strong. The first few laps, I needed to have a push to get by him, and I didn't really have anyone too close.
Coming home in second, I mean, it's worse than finishing out of the money in the series, but 55 thousandths of a second here this evening, 19 thousandths of a second 2 weeks ago at Auto Club. There's worse places to finish, but when are we going to get that first win?
I'm wondering the same thing. I mean, I've been in this interview booth, I think, every single race this year so far. Law of averages says I'll be in first place one of these times, right? But yeah, it's just I can't quite get the lead on these long green flag runs normally. And man, I think if I just qualify up front, like in first or the first 3 spots here, I'll be able to have that track position and keep it for the whole race. But it's just an uphill battle every race. Plus I fell down to like 11th, I think, on the very first run. So had to claw my way up there, and I'm happy with second, totally fine with that. I would have been third if it stayed green too, so really happy.
Richmond in 2 weeks, new rules package. Ryan said in his interview it's going to kind of put it back in the driver's hands a little bit compared to what we saw these last 2 rounds. What are your thoughts heading into Richmond? Have you done any testing? What do you see as an outlook looking forward to 2 weeks' time?
No testing yet. The only real short track driving I've done on this package was a few laps at Martinsville, just trying it out. And, I agree. I think it'll be pretty, it's going to be a difficult track, of course. You have to brake a lot, and the speeds are pretty slow, so the aerodynamics doesn't come into play quite as much, especially not as much as a track like Texas. And yeah, it'll be difficult, and it requires a completely different setup too. So you'll see some different people up front, I think, this week, or next week. But hopefully, I'll be up there too.
Who helps you get to the racetrack every week?
Well, I got to thank Mitchell DeYoung again for spotting me, and he did a great job on the fuel mileage calculations. We had it covered. We barely made it to our target on the first run, and that set us up for a smooth sail to the finish. Everyone else was struggling trying to save fuel. And besides that, I got to thank everyone else at Coanda, Bobby Zelensky and Chris Sherburn for the help on the setup, and G2 Esports. I hope y'all did well this week. I didn't get to see the results. I know he had a decent run last week, so I want to see him keep up some decent runs like that. And last but not least, certainly got to thank Virtual Racing School for being on the hood, coaching platform, setups, data, you name it. I do the video tutorials and the data packs for B and C Open, so take a look out for that. So, and yeah, thanks, Tim Terry. You're a great interviewer, sir, and a great commentator, and I look forward to seeing you back here at Richmond.
Well, maybe we'll get to do it again in 2 weeks' time, but maybe you'll be talking to Evan in Victory Lane. That's Keegan Leahy, second place here, second place at Auto Club a couple of weeks ago. And Randy, he's going to head into Richmond, second place in the point standings. Second line's up a little bit better than what it could be, but I know you're down there with the third place finisher, Corey Vincent.
Yeah, I have Corey Vincent. I will say I'm mighty interesting. I wish I would have we wouldn't have gotten that yellow just towards the end, because I have a feeling that Keegan was probably going to stay in it, trying to get around Ryan the way he had that thing slung up through the grass. But Corey, great run from you. Keegan mentioned that he says, "Oh, I think I need to qualify better," and really that's basically him already starting 6th. You started deep in 15th, and after about the midway point, you were up at the head of the field all night. Talk me through your race.
Yeah, it was a pretty solid night for us in our Renegades Ford. The first run of the race actually was pretty far off for us. We were pretty tight, couldn't really turn the car like we needed to, and on that first pit stop we made some really good adjustments, got the car turning like I needed it, and got it a lot better to where I could run up front there. And then the way the strategy played out, you know, the field kind of split half and half. We kind of went with the running the field out 55 laps pretty much, and I think we got up to P3, P4, and our car was just really strong on the long run. Obviously Ryan was fast, but it took us half the run for our car to come in, and once it came in we were fast. There at the end, you know, definitely didn't want to see that caution. Ryan was out there a couple seconds. I don't believe we had enough time to catch him. We were catching him, but I don't think we had enough to actually get to him. Definitely didn't want that caution though. Wanted it to go green, and then we got the caution and kind of had that couple restarts at the end there and bringing home P3. But I'm happy with it. Needed that.
And now, talking about the actual split strategy, you mentioned it a little bit. What's the logic you think behind some of these teams that are going for the 3 stoppers? Because it seems like almost every single time, all the races I can remember broadcasting here in Peak, those drivers who come down pit road that extra time, it never really seems to pan out for them, and it seems to always favor the drivers who essentially just run the fuel out. I'm surprised it's really a thing that a lot of the drivers are still trying, because it seems like the only way it ever works is if you catch a yellow.
Yeah. I think it comes down to the car you have, how the car is handling at that point. You know, are you kind of going forward? Are you going backwards? You know, if you're going backwards, you want to pit. For us, you know, we weren't that great, but we didn't really fall off at the end, so we decided, you know, let's go ahead and run the fuel out, get these adjustments in it, and hopefully it would be better. And we made it a lot better. And then, you know, just kind of played in our favor, and you know, I think that was the right strategy.
Thanks for joining us, Corey. Congratulations on a 3rd place finish and working your way through the field very efficiently. Before we let you go, who gets it done for that number 27 Renegades car? Yeah,
just want to give a big thanks to Renegades. For selecting me in the draft. Happy to be running for them this year. Thanks to Alienware, they're on the car. Big thanks to everybody at ERG, Esports Racing Group, all my guys that helped me out during the week and helped make these cars as fast as possible. You know, thanks to everybody that, you know, PEAK, iRacing, everybody that makes this happen. You know, I think we had a good run tonight, and we need some more of that.
Yeah, well, if you finished 3rd and think you had a good run, I have a little surprise for you. You did run good, so congratulations, Corey, on that one. I'm going back-to-back here, and I'm going from number 27 to number 28. Team Renegades getting both of their cars in the top 4 tonight, 3rd and 4th between the both of them. Corey's teammate, Garrett Lowe. Garrett, I talked about the fact that Corey didn't qualify well and ran through the field. You were a man on the mission the first 10 or 15 laps of this, getting, I think on average, about a car a lap in the rear view mirror. What did you mess up in qualifying? What did you miss?
We're not really sure what we missed in qualifying. We missed it last week at Auto Club too. We've been striving to make gains in qualifying. That's obviously something we're going to have to continue to work on this season. But you know, we did start in the back, but we were able to just drive through cars left and right. I mean, it was pretty crazy how fast we were there on that opening run. And then we made the strategy call to go ahead and come down pit road there, and it was kind of a split strategy. A lot of guys decided to try to do one less stop, and we were just pretty much committed once we made that first pit stop, so we just stuck with it, and you know, a lot of other fast cars came with us as well.
Now, talking about this new package, this is now, of course, the 2nd race we've had on it. Auto Club was always a bit of a wild card because so little testing time for everybody. This time out, 2nd race out, what's your kind of feeling on this package 2 races in?
I'm still not really a big fan of the low horsepower with this much downforce, but this race kind of proved it where we can kind of spread out and run a lot of different lanes, and I think there was a lot of movement around the field where people could pass, but you also had tough situations where it was just really hard to get to somebody and even harder to get around them, and I think we saw that all night long. So that's definitely something to kind of take going forward and have that in the back of your mind.
For upcoming races, you're getting some of that horsepower back at Richmond, and then we go to a track we've not been to in a number of years in this series, to the big 2.6-mile super speedway at Talladega. What's your guys' how do you guys feel going into these next two rounds, going from a 3/4-mile racetrack to nearly a 2 3/4-mile racetrack?
I think it adds some much-needed diversity to the schedule. I mean, I think there's a lot of mile-and-a-halves the last couple of years, at least from what I've seen. But I think going to Richmond ought to be fun, and that's pretty typical for the PEAK season. I'm excited to go there. And Talladega, like you said, wild card. We'll just have to see what happens. But we'll prepare as best we can and show up and hope we do well.
Well, thank you for joining us, Garrett. Congratulations to you and Team Renegades, and of course to Corey as well, for amazing team finish tonight. Before we let you go, who gets it done for that 28 Renegades car?
First of all, I thank Renegades and HyperX. Great products over there. I thank everybody at 5 Star Racing, just fantastic crew. Michael for spotting, Trent up on the pit box tonight, Brian Amron, Jared Crawford, Kevin Schofield, Nick Doucette for the fantastic paint. And everybody over at the team, we kind of paired up with them for the remainder of the season. We felt that us two teams had a small group of guys that could really work well together, and it really proved that that's how it's going to work. So I appreciate their help as well, and that's Cody, Justin, and excuse me, yeah, Cody, Justin, and Dylan Duval.
There he was. Mr. Garrett Lowe comes home with a strong fourth-place finish, and I mentioned the fact that we have Talladega coming up in just about a month's time. We're now going to talk to the only driver in the top 5 who is in the series. Last time we went to Talladega, talking to the only man in the broadcast booth that was broadcasting the series last time we went to Talladega. Michael Conti has stood by with Tim Terry.
Yeah, that was a little while ago. I'm sure Michael Conti remembers that, but we'll chat with him about that in a second. First, Mike, I want to ask you what you saw coming out of Turn 4 in your windshield, because you had to do some dodging to get to 5th.
Well, Tim, I knew it was going to be pretty crazy there at the end. Auto Club we saw a couple weeks ago was wild on that last restart. But I was hoping that I wouldn't exactly be in the middle of where the wreck happened, and I was literally in the middle of where the wreck happened. So it was crazy. I couldn't really see much. The run before that, I ended up plowing through the grass just because I couldn't see anything. So coming out of 4, we were side by side. I was tucked up behind Reynolds there, and I was just going to push him to the checkered. And all of a sudden, he was just turned sideways and in front of me, and I knew that I just pretty much had to stand in the gas at that point and try to split the difference. And luckily, the way Shearburn and Reynolds bounced off the wall, they just grazed the quarter panel of my car, turned me a little bit sideways, and may or may not have been full lock right going through the tri-oval there. But saved it and finished 5th, so I'm really proud of that. The Team Conti guys, everybody with Junior Motorsports, Brad Davies, great car tonight. Pole-winning car, so extremely excited to see just how good that car was here tonight.
Let's back up a little bit and talk about the pit strategy, because it looked like, for all intents and purposes, this thing was going to go green to the end, and then they had that caution with 11 laps to go. Brandon Hastings is one of the best in the business on the box, called that 3-stop audible. What was the strategy behind that? Because it looked like for a moment at the end those 2-stop drivers were going to win this thing out. What was the call, and what was the thinking on top of the box?
Well, the 2-stopper definitely proved to be a little bit more advantageous. There just wasn't really enough fall off. And to be completely honest with you, we didn't expect the fuel runs to be quite as long as they were. When we were testing, we were doing about 51 laps in a tank of gas. And I guess with the weather and the pack and the draft and everything, I mean, you had guys out there going 55, 56 laps. So we had no idea that a 2-stop was going to work out tonight. So, I try to spin it as, we purposely tried an alternate strategy. But in all reality and in all honesty, we kind of screwed ourselves at the beginning. No fault to anybody, just didn't see it coming. And honestly, I thought I was going to finish in the 20s somewhere. And then we made that last stop, and the tires were really good, and the car was fantastic. Drove all the way back up to 8th and was on Garrett's bumper for 7th. So either way, it was going to be a good finish. I've been joking all week that in this 8 car, I just seem to finish 8th in every race I get into. So finishing 5th tonight was a nice change of pace. And looks like we are 3rd in the points, so got some really good points to bank on. We can play around a little bit with some strategies like we did tonight, not have to worry about falling out of the playoffs. And yeah, it's been a really good start to the year. I'm extremely pleased with where we're at so far.
Randy kind of mentioned it. We've been around this series for a while. You've been on this racetrack with different tire models, different builds, different rules packages, different changes. I want to get your opinion on what we've seen the last two races from a driver's perspective. What do you think of this brand new building? And going into Richmond, what kind of a race do you think we're going to see there?
I'll tell you what, I'm excited to go to Richmond. And I'm excited to go to Richmond because we get the horsepower back. Now, this package is fun, and it's put on some crazy racing, which is obviously good for the people that are watching, all the fans that support the PEAK series and the stuff in real life. But for me, honestly, I like my horsepower, and every time we get a car and a build with horsepower and a lot of tire fall off, we seem to rise to the top. So while I've enjoyed what we've had the last couple weeks, I think Richmond's going to be a lot of fun. High horsepower, high downforce, cars are going to handle really well. First race on a short track with a day to night transition, so that's going to throw another wrench into things. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think you're going to see some awesome racing. It's not going to be a pack like we've seen the last couple weeks, but it's going to be just as good, just in a different way.
Who helps you get this 8 car to the racetrack every week?
Everybody at Junior Motorsports, thank you so much for believing in me. Being drafted for JRM was, like I've said on Twitter and all of my social media, a dream come true. So proud to represent them, proud to be running well for them. This is the best start to a season I've had in a very long time. So thank you to everybody at JRM. Thank you to them for this brand new computer. It's awesome. So I don't have to worry about frame rate or turning stuff down. We got everything cranked up, and it's running really well there. Still looking for some support. We're working on some things with some potential partners and sponsors. So, if anybody out there is interested in coming aboard JRM, now's the time to do it. We can definitely see what we've got going on there. But just thanks to everybody at Team Conti, the guys behind the scenes that are working on the setups and making these cars go fast. Great job the last couple weeks. 2 poles for the 8 car and a pole for the 88. So we've got a lot of speed. Got a lot to look forward to going into Richmond, and just thankful to come home with a really solid finish tonight.
And there's Michael Conti, that 5th place finish. As he mentioned, Evan's going to put him 30 in the point standings going into 2 weeks' time at Richmond. And as he mentioned, we get the horsepower back in a couple weeks' time.
Certainly the drivers are going to be excited to get that back when we go racing from the virtual Richmond Raceway. That one coming up in 2 weeks' time. First time to get this new package on a smaller track. Still going to have that big spoiler, but of course not the much more restricted 500 horsepower that you've seen the last 2 weeks. That number returns to the 700s. But we've now had 2 races on the new package. That includes, as well as the 2 races prior to that, Daytona, Vegas, on the old package. And curious what our furthest margin of victory has been so far this season. It has been an incredible start to this 2019 season. Tonight, no exception. Let's take a look. Michael Conti talking about where he is in the points. Here's the top 10 leaving tonight. Ryan Luza, courtesy of his 2nd win of the year, now goes to the top of the board. A 10-point jump ahead of Keegan Leahy, who is 2nd, and then a little bit of a gap down to Michael Conti, Jimmy Mullis, and Zach Novak, who are your top 5. Busa, Ottinger, Lowe, Zelensky, and Nichols, as you see right there, Randy, through our top 10.
I mean, talking about the points, you want to talk about what a big swing can have for you. Zach Novak comes into this race tied to the points leader with Ryan Luza. One wrong place at the wrong time for Zach Novak, and he only finds himself getting 7 points. Effectively, a 38-point swing for him. Goes from 1st/2nd all the way down to 5th. But you're talking about the package. It's been so fun to watch. The racing has been so good, and it's been a lot like the running in the Monster Energy Cup series, watching some of these drivers, which drivers excel and which drivers struggle. We've had Jimmy Johnson, a big discussing point, seeing the fact that he's struggling a little bit with the current package, and some of the stronger drivers, the pillars of this series as well. The 21 of Ray Alfala keeps lucking his way in toward nearly top 10 finishes every single week, for spending most of that race sort of in the mid-pack. Those Wood Brothers guys need to get something sorted out.
We talked about the frequency in which how many trips we have made here to this Texas Motor Speedway, and Richmond is another familiar place that has been on the calendar every single year since this series' inception in 2010. There are new challenges, and I know when you were talking with Conti there, Timmy mentioned that he's somebody who has certainly seen a few of them in his day, but it'll be familiar ground 2 weeks' time as we get set to go racing for round 5.
I like Richmond. It goes in different ways. We've seen races there that have gone caution-free. We've seen races there that have plenty of action with short track racing. So I'm intrigued to see how it plays out. We saw the early caution here this evening, and I'm sure that had a couple of fans thinking, okay, well, maybe we're in for a rash of cautions. Cautions breed cautions. Get a lot of green flag running in there, and then a couple of cautions at the end of this one. Slow it down, give us a great finish, and we'll head to Richmond in a couple of weeks' time. But look at that schedule. Richmond, Talladega, Kansas, Charlotte, and then Sonoma on the road course in June. You've got a diverse schedule coming up here for this eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing series. 4 in the book so far. Can't wait to get to Richmond.
And if you're just getting hooked, it's not slowing down anytime soon. Going to get more and more exciting as we work our way through this 2019 campaign. Until next time, though, that does it for us here tonight for the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. Do need to thank all of the people who make these broadcasts on RaceSpotTV and the iRacing Esports Network possible. Big thanks to Alex Horn for providing our track cameras and word designs for the broadcast graphics package, Simon Grossman for broadcast CG, and Nick Tyson for our RaceSpot Live timing. On behalf of Justin Prince, for our director Hugo Louise, Tim Terry, Randy Chennett, and myself, Evan Pasoko, we want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Ryan Lewis, a 2-time winner this season, 11 all-time, the 3rd most in this series, as he heads, along with everybody else, into Richmond next way. Thanks for tuning in. Congratulations to Luza for going to victory lane, your new points leader. We will catch you next time out on Tuesday, April the 9th. It is a 9 o'clock Eastern start for the virtual Richmond Raceway. That race and every race of the 2019 eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series going to be found right here on RaceSpotTV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Texas.